Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the August 14th Advisory Commission on Special Education. We appreciate your patience as we had to address some gremlins that were on the internet that were creating some technology issues for us. With that, we will jump into our agenda, and I will officially call the meeting to order. And Denise, I will ask you to please facilitate the roll call vote.
Good morning. Chair Tostin,
Present.
Vice Chair Graff,
Present.
Commissioner Estes, Commissioner Hamilton,
Present.
Commissioner Liu,
Present.
Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Michaud, Commissioner Notch,
Present.
Commissioner Oyakawa,
Here.
Commissioner Ruiz,
Here.
Commissioner Snipes,
Present.
Commissioner Sorter,
Present.
Commissioner Topalian,
Present.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Present.
Commissioner Dean, Commissioner Tex-Jargle. That's roll call. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you please join me in standing if you were in the room for the salute of our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. We'll move into the review of our agenda. Before Vice Chair Groff reviews the agenda, I will highlight one revision to the agenda. Item 2, the non-public school study update is being postponed into our October meeting, so we will not hear that agenda item today. We'll revise the agenda to use that time for our committee planning and kind of beginning of the year operational conversations as it relates to committee chair assignments, liaison assignments, and finalizing the 23-24 annual report. So just highlighting that agenda revision. Item 2 will not be the non-public school study update.
So when they do public comment,
We're hearing some feedback on the audio.
Support chat right here, 814. Support chat has been created.
Clive, we're hearing you through the live audio.
What's wrong? What?
Vice Chair Groff, would you please review the agenda for day 1, please?
Good morning, and thank you, Chair Tostin. It's a pleasure to be here and to welcome everyone to our meeting in August. We have an exciting agenda, and I'm pleased to share it with you. And we're beginning with one that is very special to me, with the Redwood Supported Education to Elevate Diversity Scholar Program, which will be presented by Beth Foraker. This is the wave of the future. So everyone online and in the room, this is what we're all going to be working towards, so that all of our students have the opportunity to have a university education if that's their desire. As Chair Tostin mentioned, item 2 will not be addressed today in the same fashion as it is on the agenda. That will be followed by lunch. Item 3 will have the opportunity for general public comment, and this is invited on any matter, including items not on the agenda. Item 4 will involve presentation on community schools. As you know, this is one of the largest budget items for California. It's kind of reimagining public education. So this is going to be a very exciting agenda item, followed by dual enrollment in California. How students with disabilities are served in terms of dual enrollment, followed by a break. And then another very exciting agenda item, inclusive access to a diploma, reimagining proficiency for students with disabilities, followed by general public comment. Comment is invited on any matter, including items not on the agenda. We will adjourn following item number 6. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So moving into communications and announcements. And so just want to begin our new year on behalf of Vice Chair Groff and myself, thanking you for your confidence and support for our continued leadership of ACSE this year. We are looking forward to building on our work from last year and deepening our progress as it relates to our strategic plan. We, at the last meeting, made a change in our meeting structure, so I want to make sure I announce this. We intended for day one to be in person in the boardroom, and day two, we will be 100% virtual. Day one, as it turns out, is a hybrid day, and I just want to acknowledge for all the commissioners and members of the public, all of us as commissioners take our appointments very seriously and do everything we can to be there in person. Realistically, life happens, and commissioners also have a number of responsibilities that include taking care of children, spouses, parents, and equally important themselves. And so a number of us had some life matters arise today and needed to participate virtually while our teammates are in the room. And so while we will always strive to hold the meetings in person in Sacramento, just wanted to make a general public announcement around our commitment to well-being and honoring the life commitments and priorities that we've made. With that, want to move into item one. We are so excited to have the presentation from the UC Davis Redwood program. As Vice Chair Groff highlighted, it's a vision for the future, and we are excited to learn about the work that's taking place and learn how we can support the expansion of programs and offerings such as yours. So with that, I yield the floor to the presenters.
Okay, no mind. Okay, just hello. Hi, my name is Beth Foraker, and I am the co-director of the UC Davis Redwood Seed Scholars Program, and I would like to introduce on Zoom two Redwood Seed Scholars. We have Kira Traeger, there she is, and then we also have Caitlin Reed right there. And they'll be talking in just a little while about their experience of being in the program. They are rising juniors. We haven't started yet. If you haven't been to UC Davis, there is a redwood grove there. And redwoods aren't supposed to be growing in the Central Valley, but these guys didn't get the memo. Redwoods really like coastal fog and much cooler weather than we have in Davis. But, people in the 1930s, a small group planted them, tended them, cared for them, and now those of us in 2024 get to stand in their shade. And so we are named after this redwood grove because people with intellectual disabilities were not thought to be able to be successful in college at all. And we believe if you build the habitat and tend and care for it, they will thrive. So just like Commissioner Tostin said, or President Tostin, I'm sorry, I don't know your official title, but we're inclusive. So we're so happy that you built a hybrid option, right? And so if something happens for you and you have to take a call or you need to go to the restroom or just take a deep breath, we're fine with that. And so this quote is what has guided us for the past 5 years in building this program. And it says, because most of the time, things that are worth doing are either massively inconvenient, exhausting, or terrifying. Does this mean you shouldn't do them? Absolutely not. Step out of your current reality, then take another step. Believe, expand, and ride out those chances while you can. And that's what we've asked our families to do, what we've asked our scholars to do, what we've asked UC Davis to do, and the city of Davis. And we've all taken it step by step. So something I think about a lot, and I'm sure you do too, but maybe the public doesn't think about, is that there are 420,000 college-age students with intellectual disability in our country. But only 2% get any kind of chance at higher education. 98% do not. And so, hey, maybe that's fine, because maybe the 98% are living their best lives and they don't need higher education, because not everyone needs higher education. So let's take a look at what's happening for the 98%. Only 15% right now in our, really great economy, only 15% have any kind of paid employment. So 85% do not, which means these people are stuck in poverty and stuck in social isolation. 42% are attending a day program that's a sheltered workshop and segregated from our society. 44% often report that they feel lonely, which truly is a testament to people with intellectual disabilities resilience, because it should be 99% feeling lonely in this situation. And then, of course, 30% live below the poverty line. So that's what's happening for the 98%. So maybe it's better in California because, we're really awesome. And this is an old graph. So you can see the living wage is $9.50 an hour, but it is still on the California Department of Developmental Services website because the data doesn't change. It's very steady and terrible over and over again. So that little orange slice is people making a living wage. That green slice is who has supported employment. So this would be a job coach, job skills. The blue slice is people going to a day program, segregated programs, and sub-minimum wage. So that's out in California, all the class, right? Because in 2019, we got rid of that, but that's still allowed federally and in 35 states, sub-minimum wage, just because you have a disability, open bigotry, which is, again, gross. But then the purple is what's devastating. These are the people just doing nothing, sitting at home, watching YouTube, not living their hopes and dreams, and not sharing their gifts and talents with their communities. And we're all worse for it. Well, another thing that's real garbage is these people don't have any representation. So there's nobody with an intellectual disability on a nice commission like this, on a school board, in state or federal, or even their city council. And so because they don't have representation, these outcomes stay that way, which again is devastating and catastrophic. So I have a son who has Down syndrome, and I want to just reiterate the phrase, the soft bigotry of low expectations. So when my son was born in 1999, he was born with Down syndrome. He was born with a heart defect that needed surgery at 9 weeks old. He developed leukemia right before he was about to turn 3. And he was very slow to speak, which is true for many people with Down syndrome because of low muscle tone. So most people would look at this person and say, oh, so sad, too bad. What talents does that person have? Who really cares, right? It's just so much that he has to contend with. Is it really a big deal if he reads or writes or rides a bike? Who really cares? But Patrick was born into a family of educators, into a community that's inclusive, shout out and snaps to Davis, California, and into a school district that is fully inclusive. So if you ever want to see full inclusion, preschool through high school happening, go to Davis, California. So he graduated with a high school diploma, which is so exceedingly rare, not because he's some gifted and talented kid with Down syndrome, but because he was afforded access, opportunity, support, and belief in his capability. Those are the sweet spots of inclusion. And so then Patrick was graduating, and the transition program that was available to him was not appropriate for him. He had graduated with a high school diploma, so he's out of high school. He's not in transition services. And so they're like, well, just kind of look around. And we looked around our state of 40 million people, our state with 1,000 school districts and 66,000 kids with intellectual disability. And there was no 4-year college program for him. So we went to other college programs, they're 2-year programs in our state, and we went and visited them. And at the time in 2018, his area of interest is media, film, Shakespeare, and writing. And so that was not open to him. He could not take classes in that area at the colleges he was visiting. And so we had to do the terrifying thing of looking further. And we looked at George Mason University, a tier 1 research university in Fairfax, Virginia, that had had a college program for people with intellectual disabilities since 2000. Because of the hard work of that university, Patrick applied. Now, there's about 350 college programs across the country that are inclusive of students with intellectual disabilities. Only about 10% have 4-year programs with inclusive living. George Mason has that. We kept telling him, you're not going to get accepted. It's too hard, but keep trying. We expected him to not be accepted the first round, but he got in. And then he had to go. We all had to let him. And COVID happened as when he was a sophomore, and he had to stay home. And then he did graduate last year in 2023. And there is Patrick with his siblings and his mom and dad saying, you did it. So if you come to UC Davis in the, when you first enter campus, there's this outdoor art exhibit that is a neon sign that says, this present moment used to be the unimaginable future. And when I saw it on campus, I was like, yep, that's true, because here they are. So this was move-in day last year in 2023, only for the freshmen and sophomores. Our juniors were moving into apartments that year. So these are kids, every single one of them is a California kid. They all have intellectual disability. They have Down syndrome, they have autism and intellectual disability. They have Fragile X syndrome, Lujan syndrome, Turner syndrome, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and all sorts of other rare chromosomal situations and global intellectual disability. They have communication disorders, they have seizure disorders, they have mobility challenges, and they are here and ready to start. And they know, what it means for them. You can tell by the smiles on their faces. So in 2010, President Obama created opportunities for inclusive college, and the national coordinating center for that is Think College. So if you are really interested in these programs, you can go to thinkcollege.net and find out a lot more. But you might be thinking, what exactly is going on here? Are these people getting Bachelor's of Arts, Bachelor of Science? Like, what's happening? Our students are not going through that same portal, admissions portal, that other UC students or Cal State students would go through. They go through an entirely different admissions portal because our outcomes are not about getting a bachelor's degree. Our outcomes are about living your full life on your terms in your way. And so we're going to focus, yes, on academics. We're going to focus on independent living. We're going to focus on social inclusion and employment, all those areas, not just academics like a typical student. So these students aren't getting a degree, so maybe it's weird. Like, why are we doing this? But we have what happens for you when you go to college. And when you go to college, you have better relationships because your communication has to get better. Your family knows your sad face, but not your roommate. And so you have to let your roommate know exactly how you're feeling. And you have to develop your ability to explain yourself. And you have to develop your ability to listen and your ability to solve problems and handle conflict. So you have better relationships. You have better health outcomes because you start caring about nutrition. You start taking classes about nutrition and exercise and the value of sleep and the importance of mental health. You are more civically engaged. As we saw all across the country this year with all of the protests happening, they are paying attention and they are engaged. So they are voting, they're caring about policy, they're learning how they can advocate. They get better paying jobs because they learn skills that are worth money. And they're happier across almost every metric. And the good news is you don't have to earn a bachelor's degree for those same outcomes. People with intellectual disabilities have those same outcomes. So this is not something for wealthy people. This is not a lark. This is true liberation and why it matters. So those employment outcomes you saw, 61%, and this is 2017 data, so old data, but between 61 to 80% of graduates make a living wage after graduation. So consider, I remember 90% of programs are 2 years. So imagine what it would be like with 4 years. 92% are satisfied with their social life. We can't get 92% of us to agree the lights are on, right? 92%, that's incredible. And such a change. So we're just going to get real here because you are the special education people, and I really have to say this out loud. Segregation in early elementary and high school does one thing. It sets you up to be segregated for the rest of your life, and that's what the outcomes show. So early segregation does not merely predict later segregation, it ensures it. And once we know this, we can't continue it. We have to stop it and end it and move forward. So everybody's like, okay, what does it take to be successful in these programs? And we're way behind in California in building these programs, which is good and bad. It's good because there's a lot of data now that we can use to help us build the best programs. It's bad because we haven't served a lot of kids in our state. And so a lot of people are still on the sidelines. But here's what it takes to be successful in a college program. And you notice reading level isn't on there. Math ability, not there. It's basics, right? And we know this. You're able to follow directions. You're able to ask for help across a variety of settings. This is really, really difficult for many of our scholars, and it's okay. You don't have to have that all in place, but you do have to know what you don't know. You're able to manage your medicine on your own. You demonstrate basic hygiene. I was actually just sharing over here with Allison that my typical developing senior, my oldest son, when he was a senior in high school, it's like, if you learn nothing from me, learn hygiene, you know? And so this hygiene is not just for kids with intellectual disability, right? This is for everyone. But basic hygiene without prompting, you're gonna be really great in college. Accepting responsibility for your action. A lot of times we prevent people with intellectual disabilities from that opportunity, and it's really, really important. Demonstrating resilience, which of course COVID taught a lot of us this, but I believe honestly, most people with intellectual disabilities are incredibly resilient. Kind to themselves and others. What is their self-talk like? Demonstrating knowledge of personal safety and time management. So that's what it takes to be successful in an inclusive college program. These are truly skills that could be IEP goals, or these are skills that we could be letting all educators, K-12, know to be building and reverse engineer these skills. So what's great about our program, you've been sitting in here short. Yeah, it's all good. Because T Swift, you're gonna pay that diagonal. Okay, well, I appreciate that.
Muted, 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 muted.
Right. Deep breaths. Good.
Unmuted.
Okay. So what's cool about our program, and it's really fun to check out all programs in our state, but we are a collaborative effort between the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion on campus here at UC Davis and the UC Davis Health System with the Mind Institute. And collaborating with the health system has created all sorts of great opportunities. Our students go and speak to first-year med school students and other people who are in the healthcare system and really start leveraging those efforts together. It's 4 years, which makes it the first of its kind in California, only the second in the entire West. University of Nevada, Las Vegas, all the snaps to them. It's a cohort model, which means our students come in together as a group, they take some classes together and they work together. And then the biggie, and you will hear from the scholars, what they think is the best part is they get to live on campus. For the first 2 years, they live in the dorms, and the next 2 years they live in on-campus apartments. We have 5 parts to our program that I talked to you about already, but basically we have specialized courses that we have developed just for our scholars. We have UC Davis courses that our students take for credit, and we can talk about how we create an academic plan for every single scholar with those professors and what they do to prove that they're understanding the content. They have the independent living. They have health and wellness mentors to help them build those skills. They have social inclusion and social inclusion mentors. They have employment and employment opportunities. We're dedicated to building paid employment for all of our scholars. And then, of course, at the center is the scholar, what their hopes and dreams are, what they want to do. We follow that. Here's where you should all be proud of California. So this is very rare. It's a rainbow unicorn, and it's happening. It's called braided funding. So what this means is there's giant, huge state agencies that have huge pockets of money, and they are working together to support our scholars. So the Department of Rehabilitation funds our tuition, our transportation, so a new bike, and technology, new computer, new phone for every single Redwood Seed scholar. That's worth about $30,000. So the State Department of Rehabilitation investing in those people. In addition, the Regional Center, which is Medicaid money, is funding the Living Learning Lab experience. So living on campus is fully funded for students in the Regional Center system who have an employment and independent living goal. So that means that for the most part, this program is fully funded for families, which means any student in the state of California who applies and is admitted could participate and not be withheld because of money. So shout out to the Department of Rehabilitation, shout out to the regional centers and everybody who's worked so hard to make that happen. Here's our mission and vision. Basically, it's a self-determined life, but it's not just for the scholars, it's for all of us. So we are building this, it's a two-way street. Inclusion impacts all of us. So we want to have our students at the end, have their full life, and we want mentors and everybody else to work and make this a reality everywhere. So you can't just plop on campus people with intellectual disabilities and say, have fun, right? You have to be very intentional and you have to have support. So they have 5 different mentors, at least, could be 5 to 8 in all of these areas. So they have 1 academic mentor, 1 social inclusion mentor, 1 health and wellness mentor, maybe multiple residential living mentors, and 1 or 2 employment mentors. So we have over 150 undergraduates, grad students, PhD students, and even some med school students who are mentors in our program. We have our first mentor who's now in med school. We have 4 mentors who are now teachers. We have multiple mentors who are in nursing programs, social work programs, psych programs. And this is how we change the world. because those people in their workplaces will be advocating for this. We believe disability is a value add for everyone, not just the person who has an intellectual disability. That guy in the back is Felipe Toledo. He's a professional surfer from Brazil. He made the time to come up to Southern California to surf with this guy and several people because he has the skill of being able to surf while holding a sack of potatoes. He's fantastic at surfing, but we all have something we can do like that. We all have excellence in some skill. And we all want to do what Philippe did. His shy smile there is like he knows he's taking his excellence to the next level. And so we want everyone to have their Philippe Toledo moment, including our scholars. So now it's a chance to hear from the real stars of the show. So Caitlin, this is your chance. Caitlin, tell us what is going on in these pictures. I hope you can unmute. They might need to like officially unmute.
Hi.
Good work. Yay. Okay. All right, Caitlin, what's going on in these pictures here? Can you see them?
I can't see them yet.
Okay, they should be up on your screen. Let me see. Here.
Oh, there we go. Now I see it.
Okay,
Oh.
good.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. In these photos, on campus, I love hanging out with my friends. It's really fun. In the photos that I have, it's just me hanging out with my friends on campus. And we have like really fun places that we like to go to. Like there's downtown Davis and restaurants out there. That's really, really fun. Yeah.
There's a picture of you bike riding. Do you want to talk about bike riding?
Yeah. So basically for your first year, when you go in as a freshman, starting your winter quarter at Davis, you are required to bring your bike and start bike riding everywhere. You basically like learn the path and then you get comfortable with it. And you just bike right to classes, bike to other classes, and bike everywhere. And it's really fun.
And then there's a picture of you signing a book. Can you talk about you signing books? Why would you be doing that?
Yeah. So when I first came to UC Davis, but before I have been writing quotes, and I got inspired by making a book because with all the quotes that I wrote, because I went through a lot before college, I decided to write quotes to get over the grief that I have felt. And I just poured my heart into it. And I've been like getting lots of questions from like everyone I know saying, when are you gonna create a book? And I was like, oh, that's actually a great idea. I got hooked on to a publisher, and that has been in process for a long time. And I came out with an interactive journal called Wisdom from the Whiteboard. And it's an interactive journal, so you can like also journal your thoughts and ideas in it. And it also has all my quotes spread out in the book, and it's a great book. That's what I've been signing.
So Caitlin has had a chance to speak, and you're in that one, you're actually signing books in my first year seminar class, but in the other ones, you signed books for med school students when you spoke with them and kind of all over. Okay, let me see the next slide. Okay, Kira, this is your turn. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kira. In the first photo, you see me working at the market. I'm surprisingly I'm the first person in the program to be working at the market, and it's been going really good. I've been doing all the stuff like stocking wise and or working with smoothies, which is my favorite part. I love making smoothies. It's always fun. And working with the cashier has always been fun too. And I go with my my mentor. In that photo, I was stalking in the fridge, I think, in that photo. The next photo was, I think that was my freshman year job, I think. I am not so sure, but I think so.
Yeah, that was your freshman year job, yeah. Do you
Okay.
remember where?
I think it was the production team
Yeah, where? Do you remember where?
at the Mandavi Center, at the Mandavi Theater. And I worked with the lights a lot and like putting in different colors in the lights. So it's always fun to do that. So I can put in my favorite colors and stuff.
And then
And
center, what's that picture of?
in the middle is a photo at the expo of me and my godmama Shell. At the expo is basically kind of like an expo is kind of like when your parents come in and they see all your homework and see what you have done throughout the whole school year. So it's kind of like that. And everyone gets so excited and everyone's there and always so much fun.
Awesome. All right, let me see my next. Okay, this is cooking with sophomores. You guys want to talk about that and getting ready to live in the apartment? Why don't you start, Caitlin, since you're the picture on the left, and then Kira can talk after you.
Okay, so when we become sophomores, we have this group thing that we do, and our cooking with sophomores mentor comes in, and we're in groups. The grocery store that we always go to for all the ingredients, we go to Trader Joe's. It's on campus, and we just basically get all the stuff we need for cooking there. We bring it back to this shared area where everyone does homework and they study, called Reagan, Maine. And they have like a kitchen area where you cook meals and you learn how to cook. And it's really fun because you're in groups and it's like different days that you cook. And we just make really fun recipes, which actually kind of ties along to junior year, which is the first year in the apartments where you basically cook for your roommates and friends, and it's really fun.
All right, and Kira, your turn.
In the photo, after Caitlin's is me. In my sophomore year, we get to do some cooking time with our group. We get assigned a group and 2 mentors, and we meet on days that we have time for. I think I remember who my group was. I think it was Matt and Ian, I think. I'm not so sure. Other students in Davis. Normally on like Sundays we go to Trader Joe's, we get all the stuff that we need. And they're always like different recipes that we would make that are yummy. And that leads up to junior year, which is the year that I'm in right now. We finally get to be in apartments, which is also really fun. And I'm excited for this year too for cooking and meeting new freshmen and hanging out with my roommate.
All right, and the next one. Okay, so I'm going to talk about these pictures. These guys doesn't have you in it, you guys, but you can add in if you want. But going downtown, our students, what we've found, which has been, we're a baby program. We're just starting our 4th year. So every year is a new revelation to us on what we're noticing. And it's been very poignant to think of these juniors and seniors who would not have the opportunity to be juniors and seniors and would just go back home. So one of our current seniors, who's in the front here, is named Jalen, and he's a super navigator. He can figure out any map, he can get anywhere. So he wanted to explore downtown Davis, and as soon as he started exploring it, he wanted to bring other people with him. So when we had him as a freshman, we were like, oh wow, how are we going to teach the students to go to downtown Davis? But then when he was a sophomore, he was like, I know how to get downtown and I can take my roommate. And so there he is taking his roommate over to someplace to eat. And they, posted this picture because you can see the pride in their face. He's having his Felipe Toledo moment right there. And then we have, nutrition. So they're working in a campus garden. We had a senior last year who, for her honors thesis, wanted to create a garden in their community garden for the Redwood Seed Scholars, and then all the education around a garden. And so that is an amazing, just way it keeps rippling through our campus. And then we have Brian. So that is the guy tucked behind Jalen. Brian is over here on the right-hand side holding his trombone. He said, oh, I want to join the campus band. And we were like, okay, I guess. And they met with him, he met with them, and they said, sure. And he put on Slack, we use Slack as a communication, hey, I'm having my concert. And so, let's see. And so he says, I'm having my concert, who wants to come and see me? And so all these students said, I want to go see Brian at the Mondavi Center, but they had never really traversed to the Mondavi Center on their own, except for maybe Kira. You're in this picture, Kira and Caitlin. You guys might have gone for your classes, but the other people really hadn't gone. And when he posted that on Slack, these people were like, I want to go. But by the time they got there, they were too late. They had missed his concert. His concert was from 7 to 7:30, and it took them a long time. But at 7:30, there was a little break, and then the fancier band was going to go. So we all sat and watched the fancier band. And then at 8 o'clock, the concert's over, and we walk out, and they all say, oh, it's dark now. It is dark, you guys. What are we going to do? And so the guy on the left, the tall guy, he had taken Uber. So he's like, well, I took Uber, so I can just Uber home. And then the two young women were like, well, we walked. He goes, well, you can come in an Uber with me then, and we'll go. So they took an Uber back. And then the guy who has his hand on Brian's shoulder, he rode his bike. And Kira and Caitlin rode their bikes. And I think one of them said, well, I don't have a light. And so the other two are like, we have a light. You can ride in between us, and then we'll ride back. And so they did. And so this is something that's called the dignity of risk. This is a big idea in the disability world. People with disabilities are often prevented from having these moments, these problem-solving moments. But every time you do something like this, you get a little braver, and you get a little bigger, and you believe that you can live out in the world. So our foundational classes, here they are for the freshman year. They take self-regulation, sexual health, communications and technology, civics and social justice to develop their advocacy skills and their understanding of how they can influence policy, budgeting, math, literacy, and writing. And then winter quarter, they start with their first UC Davis class, which is Nutrition 10. These are some of the classes our students have chosen, and they are earning college credit: Human Development, African American Studies, Chicano Studies, American Studies, Entomology, Poetry, Creative Writing, Film Editing, Painting, first year seminars, Education, Psychology, History, Design, Drama, Literature, and Human Sexuality. So you can see their interests are just as diverse as any other UC Davis student. They start bike riding, as Kira and Caitlin shared. Kira, there you are on your bike. You want to talk about it?
Sure. That was the bike that I got. I think it's a 3-wheel bike, and I still have it still today. I was really excited when I got that bike. And I got my helmet, and I'm like, okay, let's take a video of me on my bike. And we did, and it was so much fun, and I just had a blast.
Yeah, and so they ride around. So again, bike riding often is diminished as kind of a cute thing or like a nice idea, but it actually is accessible, inclusive, economical, healthy transportation. We should be building protected bike paths everywhere, because the more you can build protected bike paths, the more people can access their communities. And here is Ryan, and you can see Caitlin, she's kind of tucked down talking to a med school student, but here they are. Do you want to talk about that, Caitlin?
Yeah, I do. So one of my speaking opportunities, I went to the med school students. I did it my first year and also my second year with one of the people who's gonna be a senior in the Redwood Seed program. His name is Ryan. We spoke at the med school students. We got to talk about our experience about like being in the Redwood Seed program and like about ourselves and stuff. And they had amazing questions. And in that photo that is on the screen, it was me talking to one of the med school students, and he's asking me questions, and I got to like talk to him about like who I am and like stuff like that. And it was really a great opportunity.
Yeah, these med school students are hungry for this information. They want to do better and know better. Then again, it's all about employment. So where are our students working? UC Davis had not very often employed people with intellectual disabilities. So every single one of these workplaces said yes and made it happen, even though it was uncomfortable or they didn't know how to do it exactly right. And look at all these places where they're working. These are paid jobs, more paid jobs, all over UC Davis, and now further out into the city of Davis and further still into the SAC metro area. And then this is one of my favorite kind of explanations of the program, because to me, this is all the threads coming together. So the dream of the program, Audrey, who's in this picture, she's the right bottom corner. She comes to campus as a freshman. She meets a group of friends. You see two of them that you already know, Kira and Caitlin. She takes her first UC Davis course that she picks, and is human sexuality. And then she has her first job at the Mondavi ticket office. And then her second year, she starts taking gender studies. So Audrey is Jewish, and she also starts identifying as a woman and thinking of herself and her place in the world as a woman. And then she has her first mentor, her first real relationship. And then with mentor support and personal consideration, she actually says, I want to be a midwife. And we all say, what? No way, this is amazing. And so then we Google, how to be a midwife. And being a midwife is a lot of medical knowledge. And so then we look and we say, what about a doula? Would you be interested in being a doula? And she said, yes, I definitely want to be a doula. So then we reach out to UC Davis, to actually Sutter Davis Hospital in town. And we explain our program, we explain Audrey, we explain the situation. And they look at us and they say, of course we have women having babies who have intellectual disability. Of course. Why wouldn't we have a doula that has intellectual disability to support them? Yes, we're going to build this opportunity. And even if it doesn't work out with Audrey, we're committed to providing this opportunity for our women having babies, which again makes sense, right? It just makes sense. And so this is Caitlin, and I hope Caitlin will see with our technology. This is Caitlin coming to speak to the UC Regents. So Caitlin was part of the Disability Justice Committee, which is part of the Associated Students of UC Davis, the student body. And that man who's on the left there in the white button-down shirt, his name is Ryan Manriquez. At the time, he was the head of the Disability Justice Committee, but the year prior, he was the head of ASUCD, the student body president. And he said, we're going down to LA, UCLA, we're going to talk to the regents. I'd love to have a scholar come. And we had a mentor come with, Caitlin came, she prepared her 1-minute speech. But there were 15 people in that delegation to go down to speak to the regents. And because it was the first time they had gone, they arrived on time, even a little bit early, but the line to speak was so long that nobody from UC Davis would be able to speak. And somebody in that line gave up their spot so that Caitlin could speak. And they allowed her 1 minute talk. So I'm gonna really pray this works. Do you know how to, oh. Wonder, yeah, let me go backwards. Okay, it doesn't look like it's gonna work, but also this is amazing too. So if you don't know about this, I will send these links to you guys and you'll have them. This is a woman who did a public service announcement for people with intellectual disabilities, just basically saying you need to have assumptions that we can do this. So California the governor signed legislation last fall to change the ed code so that people with intellectual disabilities can have access to all UCs and all CSUs. And then he created, in this terrible budget year, a $2 million spot to build the California Center for Inclusive College. So this is a center where we can begin to collect data, disseminate information, share with families and school districts and teachers and advocacy groups, and build more inclusive opportunities in our state. So we have a website which you can check out, and now it's time for questions if it's time. We might be past time, so whatever you want to do.
Well, first I want to begin by thanking you for such a rich presentation, and Caitlin and Kira, thank you so much for your time and sharing your experience. I know I was inspired and challenged. I love the quotes. And think about the opportunities that have been missed for so many individuals with intellectual disabilities to go through the 18 to 22, 23-year-old experience of being on campus, learning how to take appropriate risks and expanding who they are through continued participation in educational setting. And so appreciative of all that you've shared with us. If we wanted to support the work, what might you suggest as the best way we can uplift and highlight and support your continued work?
I think sharing the possibility with all of the important stakeholders around our state, of course. We really want to work with the governor to build state funding for inclusive college programs. So I don't know if you're friends with him, but we really want to have this. I mean, we only take 12 students at a time. 12 students at a time out of 66,000. It's torture. And we have a robust university system that is the pride of California, and we actually had a student, an undergrad student, choose Davis over UC Berkeley because we had this program, right? So UC Davis undergrads understand the value add for them. And we want every person at every UC, every Cal State, every private university in the state to have this opportunity. We will be a better state for it. So any way we can build state funding would be great. Because we have the funding for our students to be fully funded, but we really need funding for the programs, programmatic. And that's what we don't have right now. That's what our grant gave us. But that grant is a 5-year grant and then it sunsets. And then we have to either reapply or give the opportunity to somebody else in our state.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Chair Tossin, are you going to?
No, I was going to ask you, please facilitate the additional questions.
Sure, let's see if we have some questions.
So I was fortunate enough to tour with SECO last month.
Oh yeah.
And it was just beautiful going and hearing from the students and being there in person. I do have one question, kind of going back to the governor and the Center for Inclusiveness. So I think it was around 2012 that UCLA's Pathways program started. I think they're one of the first.
Yes.
We've come so far since then. So what does, and again, I think them being one of the first, what does the collaboration look like in terms of you guys getting together at the college level and planning and supporting each other? Is that happening? Is that increasing? What does that look like?
Yeah, it is happening. We have this thing called the Inclusive College Alliance, the ICA, and so there's about 8 Cal State programs, the UCLA program, our program. And then we have C2C programs, college to career programs at the community college level. And so we do gather together and meet and just talk about ways to support each other. Right now, the state of California gave, I think, 7 programs $100,000 to launch a year ago. So 7 programs launched with very few students, of course. I mean, 12 is the max. So they launched with maybe 2 or 3, but they didn't get any more state funding. And so they're really in a stress period right now. And so we've been meeting a lot about how to get funding and what to do. That grant that we got is coming up in 2025. So of course, a lot of universities will apply for it, but it's only $13 million that they disperse around the nation. So only 22 universities got the grant, and we got $2.1 million to start our program. But that's another advocacy piece, federally working to expand those grants too.
First, thank you. Phenomenal program, phenomenal presentation. Thank you for sharing the information with us. Is there an age limit that's like, that you have for the program? I guess first question.
For our program, it's 18 to 23. The reason we have that limit is because of the dorms. So it's a UC Davis dorm age limit. But a lot of programs go 18 to 26, and some programs have no age limit.
And then second question, how does UC Davis publicize this, either with local school districts or family empowerment centers? We'd love to support in whatever way we can to kind of get the word out.
Yeah, so we, and Caitlin and Kira are speaking today, but we have other scholars who speak too. So we go to different SELPAs, different school districts, transition fairs. We go all over the state, lots of times on Zoom, so hybrid really helps. And we try and get the word out. What's happening now, and of course it makes sense, our students are the best ambassadors. So then they go to their communities, and then other people in their communities, want to know more. School districts want to know more. They come talk to their schools. But that leaves out all the people who aren't in those communities, right? Or, in other parts of California. So we try and really be intentional with going all over California to talk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to see the presentation. I was also part of the CECO group, so it was a great, it's wonderful to see Caitlin again and hear about this. It's so exciting. I have a question for Caitlin and or Kira.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're able to hear me well, so you might have to repeat it.
Sure.
But I'm wondering, as we're looking at current juniors and seniors in high school, what advice would they give them if they start to think about this being a possible part of their future?
Did you guys hear?
Yeah, I can go first on this if you guys want. The advice I would give them would be I know you're scared now to go to college and apply, but once you apply and get a feel of what the college experience is like, you will feel more comfortable with it and knowing what the living arrangement is like. And once you get familiar with that, you will just have a great time, and there's a lot of great classes, and it's a great environment, and you meet a lot of friends, and it's just the best ever because you get support.
I would say, from my experience from coming up to Davis, I would say, since I was before Davis, I didn't really know anyone from the program at all, besides Caitlin, who I met at 10 years old, I think. And when I came up to Davis, I came up knowing not a lot of people. And then when I met so many people, I made so many new friends, not just the one person that I met from a long time ago. I met so many new people that I call family now. And I would say just going up to Davis, being with friends. It's always been like so much fun to be around and studying all the stuff that I want to study, and also going to classes every day with my friends, and being able to live independently and do stuff on my own, like my job and stuff. And I wanted to tell them about that.
Thank you. And also thanks to Caitlin for the book.
Yeah. Caitlin, we passed out your book.
I'm so glad you guys love it. I'm really happy.
Thank you. I think we have some questions from our online commissioners. Commissioner Snipes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Beth. I just have to say, like, it's no surprise or question why the Supporting Inclusive Practices team has recognized Beth as an inclusion champion and accomplice. Caitlin, I got your book right here. I love it. Thank you so much. Beth, one of the things that you brought up was that early segregation piece. And in my early childhood work, it's so apparent how connected those 9 core competencies are to the foundational skills that we want to see in high quality early education. And I have used that, your 9 core competencies, in partnership with the 9 core foundations of the preschool, transitional kindergarten learning foundations, to show that deep connection and build that bridge and give our early childhood educators that full vision of, this is how it starts and this is how it can end. So it's just so amazing to be able to draw that through line. And I appreciate you sharing. Every time I hear you share, it gets me energized and ready to go. So I just thank you all for being here today.
Well, I think you make such a good point. President Tolston was asking, what can we do? Honestly, the low-hanging fruit is universal preschool in our state. If we did universal preschool in our state, all students would be starting at inclusive, right? So to me, that's a real easy, low-hanging fruit that we can all advocate for.
Thank you. Commissioner Liu.
Hi, thank you so much for this most wonderful presentation. Gosh, I'm so happy to hear that there's something out there, but unfortunately, 12 students in our great state of California with so many needs is not enough. I'm very happy to hear that Governor Newsom signed this legislation for inclusive college. And I was wondering, I think you said it was $2 million. Where will this inclusive college funding go to? Would it be going to UC Davis seed program or some other location in Southern California, or anything of that sort? And how many students do you think that can help with?
So actually, it's not going to any particular program. What it's going to is building a center for kind of inclusive college. So like almost like a clearinghouse of information, kind of like think colleges. And so that money is meant to partner. So a university is going to partner, a county office of education is going to partner, school districts are going to partner, and regional centers all together are going to be working together to build this center. And so the people, it's brand new money and it's a brand new thing. So people are still figuring it out, but basically people have to apply to be those groups working together. People who do have inclusive college programs right now, I think they need 4 representatives from those programs to be like a board of advisors for this center. And it's really meant to be a data collection point, a place to share best practices, and a place to get the word out. Hopefully building a giant website, where families can go and see opportunities and click on links and know. So, but that's all I know of it. Yes, it is not coming to the Redwood Seeds College.
It's not coming to it? Sorry, say that?
To our program. It's totally separate from our program.
I see, but yeah, that's great that that there's going to be a center like this. Is this kind of like a grant that different organizations will be applying for so that they can help
Yeah, they're all going to work
execute the center?
The group, like a group of, let's say, one regional center, one university, one research institute, one school district, one county office of education. As a group, they'll work and apply for it. And, you know, it's $2 million. So maybe we could, you know, we don't really know how it goes, but maybe, you know, there needs to be Southern California representation too. And all rural representation. I mean, we need our whole state on board, which is kind of the point of the center, to let everybody know about it.
Great, thank you. I'm so glad there's such a thing. And I think $2 million is actually not enough. It's just a little start. And hopefully it will continue on and be bigger because there's a huge need for this, obviously.
Well, it's yearly. The $2 million is every year. So that's great to keep going. Yeah.
Great. Is there a sunset date?
There isn't, that as far as I know.
Okay, let's not mention that then. We'll talk about sunset. Okay. But hopefully at least it will increase over the years. That's what I'm looking forward to. But thank you. Thank you so much for a really wonderful presentation.
Sure.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Hello, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. I love this program. I love hearing about it, and I especially love hearing the perspectives of Caitlin and Kira. Thank you for sharing. It sounds like you both had a great time. And I'm excited to see and hear about more of these programs, you know, launching across the state and giving opportunity to all of our students. As the parent of a student with cerebral palsy, multiply disabled, I look forward to that community also being included in programs like this and getting educational opportunities in college. So I feel like your program and others like it are foundational to pushing forward to even more inclusion for all students, not necessarily just those with intellectual disabilities, but those with multiple disabilities to be able to have this kind of opportunity as well. So I just wanted to throw that out, not so much a question, but just sharing.
Well, we have Brian has cerebral palsy, one of our students, but we also have an incoming freshman who has cerebral palsy in addition to intellectual disability. He uses a walker and has an electric wheelchair and just got a 3-wheel electric trike. So we'll see how it all goes, but we're very excited for that opportunity, and we're building those pathways, hopefully. So we agree. We want everybody to have this opportunity.
I love that. Thank you.
Commissioner Hayakawa.
Thank you all so much. This was such a great presentation. I live in Davis, so I remember the first article I read about it in the Enterprise. And I've been waiting to hear what's been happening and how it's progressed. So I'm really proud of our little town and the little university that's not so little anymore that's doing this great work. I think you actually mentioned, you know, Davis is a town that our district has been working really hard to be more inclusive for all our students with disabilities. I have a daughter who will be starting high school in a couple of weeks who has 22q deletion syndrome, autism, and is hard of hearing. And nothing's perfect, but we feel very supported. And I do feel that students who learning more about your program, I wonder if you sort of have to come from that sort of environment where you've already been in an inclusive program leading up to this in order to be able to succeed at the university scholar program level. And I imagine you're able to support other students who did not have those types of opportunities. But to me, it's just a reminder of why we need to keep pushing for inclusive practices from preschool through 12. Like this is just another example of where we're going, right? And this is the goal. And I think Commissioner Graff said that in the beginning. This is what we're all working towards, this type of success for our students. And so I'm excited to see what you are all doing. And I hope that with the new funding for this center that it can spread to other universities throughout the state. But at the same time, remind everyone that, yes, we also need to build at the younger ages first and start from there. And we're, you don't need to wait for one. Let's keep working on both ends and cover the whole spectrum. So thank you for sharing. I will look for you all on the bikes, Caitlin and Kira. When I'm riding around or on Trader Joe's, I'll look for you guys and I'll say hi. So I'm the crazy lady who'll be looking for you too. Thank you all.
Yeah, that would be amazing. They would love it. They do hang out at Chipotle a lot, so you might see them downtown. I will say that with 1,000 school districts and, some school districts are super far along in inclusion as a way of educating their students, and some are still, really stuck in segregated settings, and we can't penalize our applicants for that. So if you have a diploma, awesome, come on in. If you don't have a diploma, you have a certificate of completion, come on in. Anybody's welcome. We agree. That's my secret. I call it like pushing everywhere, so pushing at the preschool level, pushing at the, early elementary level, pushing at the junior high level, the high school level, pushing at the college level. I want to see, so something I'm committed to building is what I call continuums of inclusion. So these are communities that have preschool all the way through 4-year college, inclusive continuum. When you have that momentum at the end, then you get the full inclusive living and the inclusive employment possible in your community. So Davis right now is the only full continuum of inclusion in our state, which is devastating, right? So we have pockets of inclusion doing great work at the college level or at the early childhood level or at the elementary level or high school, and hardly any have it all happening at once. And that's what we really need to be intentional about building, is this continuum of inclusion so that full adulthood and inclusive adulthood is possible.
Thank you so much. I know we have one more comment from Commissioner James.
Thank you, Beth, Caitlin, and Kira for the presentation. And also thank you, Caitlin, for your book. I can't wait to use it as like a daily journal with all the quotes and just like reading the forward about like your experience and how you became inspired to like speak out and share a story. It's really inspirational. I guess one suggestion I might have is I feel like it is so cool just hearing other stories and even seeing like a day in the life, or like, for example, the story that you shared, Beth, with the concert. Yeah. I think just hearing those stories just like brightens up my mood and also like motivates me maybe when I'm in a position like that one day, and others as well. I feel like either through like YouTube or social media, or even like on the UC Davis, I'm sure that you probably have like an Instagram account sharing like a day in the life or like a fun adventure and some of the things that as students in this program, and Caitlin and Kira, you guys are doing. I think that really will bring a lot of visibility to like the wider student population and to other like UC Davis students as well.
Well, we do have social media. We do have an Instagram account. Redwood Seed Scholars has an Instagram where we do share stuff. We'll be speaking today on it. But yeah, getting the larger UC Davis to amplify is always great. And the Mind Institute tries to amplify every so often so that they are the people with the big followers. We don't have TikTok, but we should definitely. So yes, thank you. I appreciate you because we want to get there. We're a very lean team, but yes.
Okay, the comments keep coming. Commissioner Topalian. I'm just wondering also if you guys have reached out to the SELPA administrators of just presenting some of the information, so then they could also maybe have them go down to the school districts and also present to students to inspire them as well.
We did present to all the SELPAs. And then we are now, we call it on the tour. We're going down to different cities to speak. So yeah, it should be exciting. Okay.
Commissioner Liu, did you have another comment or is your hand still?
Yes, may I ask another question? Thank you again for your presentation. And I am a school board member in Torrance. We have 22,000 students. We have services for preschool to 12, but we also have a large program to take care of the disabled until age 27. I was wondering if, I mean, it would be a very different program, but if there are school districts, programs out there, not school districts, that link up their high school graduates to their community colleges so that they can attend 2-year schools, not just 4-year schools, and maybe that could be, provided to a more number of students. I was wondering if you know of any of such things.
Yes, yeah, there are, so there's these programs, college to career programs, C2C programs that are, so we put all our eggs actually in that basket in early 2010s to build inclusive college opportunities at the community college level. There is one community college, actually, no, two community colleges, Taft Community College down in San Bernardino and Sierra College up in Roseville, California, that have dorm living, which is really where we want to get for these C2C opportunities too, right? Because the independent living is really the bridge to the independent adulthood. And so for our particular students. And so the dream, yes, is to build a path to we have 118 community colleges. So every single one should have a C2C program with living as part of it. And there are amazing transition programs doing very similar-ish work. But if we had funding, state funding for these community colleges to build inclusive living and to build these programs and expand them, it could really change a lot of communities. Yeah, we
That's
agree.
great. That's great to know. Thank you. I will be talking to my local community college and actually the Los Angeles Community College board. I think it's this huge board that they have about bringing that up, and if we can do just have several dormitories for our students would be great.
Go check out Sierra College. They're just launching this year, and Taft is great too. So yeah,
Sierra and Taft. Got it. Thank you.
Wow, well, I think we've covered all of our questions and comments. And again, Beth, this has a special place for me. I'm trying to get the private universities on board as well, so that we have funding across all of our higher education institutions. And I know you also work, even though it's not within the purview of this group, within the Catholic school system as well on inclusion.
Yep.
And so you serve all the
Catholic universities.
And Catholic
let's
universities.
get it going. Yep, let's get it going everywhere.
So it's all the children in California.
All the children. We help Jewish day schools, any school.
Traditional, charter, and parochial and private schools.
Yes.
So this covers all of the children in California. So thanks again, and I'm sure you're going to be getting a lot of replies and comments being sent to you as well, and to see what we can do to help support it. So once again, thank you to everyone presenting today, and we really appreciate it. Best of luck.
Thanks for the opportunity. Take care. Thanks for your good work. And you guys didn't get a book. I have two.
Yeah. Thank you. And as we transition to public comment, I just want to, Denise, if you could grab a copy of the book for me. I'll be in Sacramento next week, so I can swing by and pick one up. And I see some of the other commissioners who are online. I just want to put in dibs for the book as well. If we could transition to the slide for public comment, and I need to make a quick announcement. We're having some audio issues on the feed that are preventing volume for the public who are listening in. So the only modes of communication right now are the closed caption and interpreters. That being said, it's a good time to remind everyone to please speak slowly to support our interpreters and closed captionists in being successful in their work. If there are any members of the public who would wish to make public comment in the room, we'd ask that you begin lining up. Any members of the public who are following along the closed caption and are receiving this information. If you'd like to make a public comment, I want to assure you the commissioners in the room, as well as those online, can hear the broadcast. So if you please dial in that number. Alternatively, feel free to email in public comments at acse@cde.ca.gov.
We do have one comment within the room. Please go ahead. Please identify yourself. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner. Scott Turner, Chair of the SELPA Administrators of California this year. Just want to thank Kira, Caitlin, and Beth for the amazing presentation, like was shared by Commissioner Snipes with supporting inclusive practices. SELPA Administrators of California are big fans of the Redwood Seeds program. As mentioned, we had them at our July state SELPA meeting, and they had a presentation similarly. They just shared all the amazing things that they're doing within the program, and we're hoping that that will trickle down to many other universities, state schools. We know many community colleges are also supporting this work. So we're partners in that, so much that we recognize their program with a charitable contribution, and we're able to deliver a check. Our past chair, Elizabeth Engelken and Patrick McGrew, recognized the program last fall and were greeted by the scholars and the staff. And it's just an amazing program, and we lend our hand to partner with them in any way to continue this work. It's very important work that needs to occur in California, and our association is available to support in any way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any callers online?
There are no callers at this time.
There are no callers at this time. Chair Tostin?
All right, so with that, we will close item 1, and we will adjust our agenda. We want to make sure that we are able to resolve the audio issues. So rather than continuing on our work and having conversations, we're going to pause here and take our lunch break while the team continues to work on addressing the remaining gremlins that are preempting our meeting on the internet, and we will resume our meeting at 1 o'clock. If I can ask all commissioners to the greatest extent possible, please be back at 12:55 so that we can just confirm the technology is working and be ready to go at 1 o'clock with public comments. All right, thank you, everyone. I will see you shortly. Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Advisory Commission on Special Education. We want to thank all of the members from the public who sent a number of us text and instant messages to alert us of our audio issue from the morning session. We believe that it is resolved and are certain we will hear about it if it's not, but I wanted to just acknowledge the members of the public who are following along and supporting us and ensuring our meeting is accessible. At this time, I would ask the CDE team to please post the slide for a public comment as we move into an opportunity to hear general public comments. Any members of the public in the room wishing to make a general public comment, please line up. Anyone who is online, please dial in. We ask members of the public who are making comment, if you are comfortable, to please share your affiliation and name, and remind you that you have 1 minute to make public comment. Additionally, you may email in any public comments and it will be distributed to the full commission. Vice Chair Groff, are there any public comments in the room?
No, I don't believe so.
All right. And are there any public commenters who have called in?
There are no callers at this time.
Okay. Well, with that, I will close item 4, general public comment. And I see our next presenter has joined us online, so we will transition into item 5, an update and overview of the California Community Schools Partnership Program, We've talked about this at a number of meetings and have talked to a number of partners related to the work, and some of us are even connected to the work. The community schools program represents the most significant transformative investment that the state has made. And having seen the work up hand, I'm inspired by everything that's going on, and delighted to see the intentionality that different grantee recipients are making to ensure that our community schools are in service of all students. We are very fortunate to have with us today Michael Eason, the Executive Director of the Community Schools Partnership Program at the State Transformative Assistance Center, or STAC. Michael, so appreciate you making time for us today, and I yield the Zoom floor to you.
Well, it is my pleasure being here. And I guess I can take my PowerPoint and just share it with the screen as we lane into this conversation. So I'm assuming this is the sum total of the conversation right here, the individuals in this space. Okay.
There are members of the public who are participating in the meeting virtually, so we are broadcasting.
Got it. So then I will change my conversation. Most definitely. It's good to know. Good to know. I was wanting to ask those questions. So I will be more formal in my presentation. Just let you know, it's a conversation. I'm going to share some information, and then people will have an opportunity to ask questions. And I do believe that asking questions is what's really valuable in this space, so that we can make sense and make meaning. So let me share my screen.
Actually, Michael, they're projecting the slide deck for you. If that would be easier.
If they can project it for me. I'm fine with that. I just don't see it as a large. It's a window in and of itself off to the side. It's one of the panelists. But if everybody else can see it, I have it on my phone. I can follow on my phone. That's not going to be an issue. Okay. First of all, thank you all for allowing me to be here. My name is Michael Eason. As David said, I'm the Executive Director of Community Schools and Partnerships in Alameda County Office of Ed, and the STAC, the contract to implement the California Community Schools Partnership Program, is one of my responsibilities. And part of those responsibilities is actually sharing with the public what this thing actually means, what it looks like, and for your context, where do you see yourself in this space? Next slide, please. So who am I? This is my background. So I taught in public education in Oakland Unified for 21 years. For 6 years, I taught mathematics, Algebra 2, Trig, Geometry, and Algebra 1. And for 15 years, I'm an education specialist. I was a resource specialist and a special day class instructor. So when I come into this space and I talk about things, I have a lens that includes children with learning differences as well as rigor connected to outcomes. That led me to become an administrator. So I was a principal in the southeast section of San Francisco at a middle school called Martin Luther King Middle School, where I turned that school into a community school back in 2015 and improved outcomes for all students. When I say all students, I don't make a distinction between students. I don't make a distinction between children who have learning differences. Everybody is a student, and it's incumbent upon us to meet the needs of all students wherever they are. So we had some amazing outcomes, and hopefully some of that will be shared in here in terms of how we should be thinking about community schools. So as I said, I represent the STAC, the State Transformational Assistance Center. Next slide, please. That center, the Transformational Assistance Center, consists of 4 organizations. We're talking about Alameda County Office of Ed. We're talking about UCLA for Community Center for Community Schooling, Californians for Justice, and NEA, the National Education Association. These are the 4 entities that make up the thing that we call the STAC. And we are responsible for a lot of things, but the biggest thing is producing content, methodology, and professional support for the regional transformational assistance centers to meet the needs of all the grantees and to answer questions that the public might have concerning community schools. Next slide, please. So what are we engaging in? we're engaging in, and this is something we're talking about, school transformation and reimagining. And so I'm really into images that convey what we're trying to do. And here we have a young plant. The secret to change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Socrates. In our work with the Community Schools Initiative, we're trying to build something new. We're trying to transform and reimagine schools. So how do we focus in our energy, not on talking about all the things that we know that have traumatized us in our work, but what is it that we want moving forward? And this is a precious time. This is a gentle time. So as we think about the plant that is sitting in the hand, as we are trying to reimagine schools and create something new, this is a delicate process. And how we talk about this, how we think about this is very important, because we need that plant to grow strong so that it can be independent without the tended nurture on a day-to-day basis that we most give when we are dealing with newly planted items. Next slide, please. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about community schools as a strategy, the statewide transformation assistance. What does that look like? And then, of course, the whole school, whole community, whole child. These are the three elements that are significant for this strategy to be successful. Next slide, please. The community school strategy. Next slide. What we have here is information that is connected to the framework itself. And when I say the framework itself, when we look at the legislation that was passed, the legislators put information into this framework that is now driving the law, that is now driving California Education Code. And one of the things that I pull this out to share is I want people to know that children who have learning differences are actually named in this, but people have to read through and find where these spaces and places are. And so this language here is taken directly from the framework. And I actually boxed in some specifics around why the California Community School Framework is supposed to be implemented. So it's supposed to address students' academic, cognitive, physical, mental, and social emotional needs. That's what this is supposed to do, right? It doesn't say which cognitive, it says cognitive needs. It says academic needs. It says physical, mental, social, emotional needs. That covers every student. So if in some way in our conversations as we're leaning into this work, if there are certain groups of students that are being left behind in the conversation, we need to call out that in the framework, it says we're addressing all students. I also pulled up hopes and dreams and aspirations of California's families. That's all families. That's not certain families. That's all families identified in the framework. And of course, last but not least, learning opportunities that prepare all students to succeed in college, career, and life. That is the overall framing as we lean into a conversation around the community school strategy. There aren't any set of students or set of families, caregivers, or stakeholders that are exempted from this. This is all hands on deck in order to lean into this work. So, but what makes this any different? Next slide, please. I'm sorry, they have some, I'm sorry, I put some animation on it. Can you click it 3 times? It should take us to the next slide. There we go, thank you. So, what are we asked to do? We're asked to reimagine schools, but schools is a large system and structure. So, how is community schools as a strategy supposed to support this? Well, we must first begin to look at what is the system. When we look at the total system, there's the state level, there's the county level, there's the LEA, the Learning Education, Leading Education Agency, and the school site. LEA is simply the school district, whether it's unified, an elementary or a high school district, it's just a district. And we're talking about change is at the structural, relational, and transformative levels. And at those levels, what are we talking about? Policies, practices, resource flows, right? Relationships and connections, power dynamics, thinking about the mental models to engage in the conversation. The community needs and assets assessment. These things are happening or should be happening simultaneously, and we should have stakeholders at multiple levels representing multiple interests who are part of this conversation at multiple levels, especially when you start thinking about how schools are really siloed. We're trying to break down the silos and be inclusive. Inclusive where? At all of these levels. What does it look like for a caregiver, for a student, for somebody who represents a church community or an entity, a nonprofit organization provides services in the community? How are they positioned to participate in this reimagining of schools at the state level, at the county level, at the LEA school site? How are they positioned and invited to these meetings where real decisions are being made to change schools? And we're saying that these people need to be invited, these multiple stakeholders at these various levels, to engage in conversations to deal with the structural change, the relational change, and then participating with the transformative change, which is things happening on the ground. So how does the community school strategy lean into that? Next slide, please. There is a framework that is considered the California Community Schools Framework, and we call it the 4x4, right? There are 4 pillars, 4 cornerstones, 4 key conditions, and 4 proven practices. If people are to advocate and understand and fight for and participate in ways that are going to be meaningful, right, that are going to be authentic, people need to know what these pillars mean and what they mean to the people that they represent. You need to know, if we're talking about the 4 pillars, how do the 4 pillars support children with learning differences? The key conditions of learning. How do they support children with learning differences? These things need to be brought to the table. These things need to be shared so that in this conversation, there's not a separate conversation in which we lean into a conversation around children with learning differences. They have to be part of the initial conversation. They have to be part of the decision-making process when it comes to transforming and moving schools forward through the Community Schools Initiative. And I do want to highlight some of the things that are very important. Like for the pillars, it's like the integrated student supports. When we begin to think about full inclusion, more times than not, people find ways to try to exclude individuals, but an integrated student support, well, then what if we're talking about integrated student supports, then what kind of conversations can we hold around full inclusion? What does that begin to look like, right? Who is on our instructional leadership teams when we start doing professional developments for instruction? Our instructional leadership teams, which are supposed to have multiple stakeholders, are they leaning into accommodations and modifications as a system across the school, as opposed to something that's occurring in a couple of classes and by themselves, right? These are things that are very important as we begin to think about how do we shift ourselves into the center of the conversation around the framework itself. How do you represent? How do you show up? Next slide, please. These are some of the fundamentals. I'm not going to really go into a lot of detail around this, but the reason I put this slide is so that people need to understand what these fundamentals are and what is actually happening. The annual progress report is something that is very significant. That is something that is filled out every year and from every school site. Do our families know about this APR? When the information and artifacts are being submitted, are the families who are represented here in this space, the organizations, do they have their information included in the conversation? Have larger conversations been held at the school site around the community school strategies that actually center the accommodations, modifications, and the needs, the integrated student supports? Being able to understand that this annual progress report goes in and what is concluded in that progress report becomes very important when you come to advocating and fighting for your rights and needs. And of course, then there are plans, there's needs and assets assessment. These are other things, this needs and assets assessment. When these things are generated, it's supposed to be generated for all of the stakeholders inside of the school community. What questions reflect the community, the aspect of the community where you have students and families who have learning differences, right? Are there any questions around the learning environment, being invited at the school, full inclusion, a culture of a sense of belonging? These things are very important as we begin to think about advocating and fighting for a system that fits and serves all students, not a system that creates one for one group of kids and one for a second group of kids. This is what the community school strategy is trying to do, is trying to break down the silos where we have one community and not two. Next slide, please. This is simply the California way. It has these elements. The why we're doing this, the overarching values. We're trying to be racially just. We want to be relationship-centered spaces. We want classroom community connections, shared power, and a focus on continuous improvement. And as you see these whys, as I'm sharing this information, how do you see yourselves, your families, your students involved in these conversations? Where are you positioned in these conversations? How are your interests and reflections and perspectives around these words that we're throwing around, these concepts? How are they being reflected in the conversations that are driving how we improve schools, how we change schools, right? How we use the community school strategy as a way to be more inclusive and share power and include more voices in the decisions around what is occurring inside each individual school site, what's occurring in each individual school district, and what's happening at the county office level. And of course, finally, policy. What are we advocating for at the state level so that our legislators can continue to support what we have decided is of interest to our students, to our families, and to our communities? Next slide, please. So as it stands right now, we have a lot of initiatives that exist, and this is not the sum total of initiatives. This is just a representation. There are a lot of initiatives that exist out there that are trying to support the various students and families that we serve throughout the state of California. And they have a variety of things, that some of it's like counseling, some of it's around food, early education, juvenile crime and justice. But there's no coherence. These things are siloed. What the community school strategy is trying to do, next slide, please, is transition from these things being siloed to there being a community school strategy where we have representation from these various entities in the decision-making process at the school level. And when these individuals are part of the decision-making process, what are they leaning into a conversation around and about? This is where the community school strategy comes in, because the community school strategy says, one, you have to have shared power. What does that mean? You have to have various entities on your decision-making body at the school site level. It's not advisory at the school site level. It is a decision-making body at the school site level. Have you done a needs and assets assessment, right? How have you created the documents that are related to your single plan or school plan for student achievement? Has this body that looked at the needs and assets assessment that is now part of this decision-making body, shared decision-making, have they contributed to the development of the SPSA, the SIPSA, the school plan for student achievement? How are students who have learning differences centered in this conversation and have representation that creates a sense of belonging, that honors who they are? This is what the community school strategy is trying to do. And we're trying to make sense of this. And that could only happen because contexts are different. It can only occur as people lean into these conversations, understanding the aspects of the conversation, and then making meaning that represents their needs as we move forward. Next slide, please. And so what is this system? We start talking about the Statewide Transformational Assistance Center. We are the center that created we didn't create it, it's in the contract, a technical assistance. How are we then supporting the development of this? How are we supporting the content development, the methodology, and then the professional development and the training and support for schools, for caregivers, for organizations, for teachers and administrators to change mindsets and transform school? Next slide, please. So in order to do that, what did occur from the state decided that there are going to 3 levels of transformation need to occur, and that these are puzzle pieces that fit together. There's the implementation grantee, that's at the school site level. There's the planning grantee, that's at the district level. And I'm going to pause. So when I say the implementation grantee is at the school level, When we start talking about shared decision-making, the implementation grantee at the school site level, the shared decision-making body, they are decision-making bodies. This is where decisions are made on direction. It's not advisory. This is decision-making, real power, voting, moving forward, however, whether it's consensus, whatever the case may be, at the ground level at the school site, the parents, the students, or the caregivers, the teachers, the administrators, the organization in the community, they need to be part of the decision-making team that is literally voting to move things forward. On the planning grantee side, on the opposite side, this is at the district level. And at the district level, this is advisory. At the district level, what needs to change in order to support the new way of being at the school site level? And I will give you an example. Traditionally, as a principal, which I was a principal, once I get the big set of keys on the principal, I get to make all of the decisions. If a school does not meet certain goals that are connected to academic goals or social emotional goals, then what tends to happen is the principal gets called downtown to talk to the superintendent and his team around what happened. Why didn't you guys meet the goals? And there has to be this explanation. Well, we're moving to a community school strategy where it's shared decision making. The principal is no longer making decisions by themselves, right? You're going to have students, you're going to have parents, caregivers, you're going to have organization teachers on this decision-making body. And so if this is the case, accountability has to look a little different. For the planning grantees at the district level, what has occurred? Have we shifted what accountability looks like to support people around a shared decision-making body or the shared decision-making group? How have you changed the professional development scope and sequence for principals and assistant principals where they need to deal with shared leadership as opposed to being top-down and authoritarian? What does it look like now for training for teachers when teachers are now decision-making bodies and have real authority? What do parent-teacher association groups look like now in our district at the district level when it comes to supporting parents and caregivers at the school site, leaning into being decision makers around the community school strategy? These are things that need to be wrestled with. Meaning making needs to occur. And once these things are happening in those spaces, then the county also has a responsibility, county coordination. And this is a heavy lift. The county coordination, the county focus of the grants, the county Office of Ed are tasked with creating the infrastructure for governmental agencies, nonprofit community-based organizations, and other external partners to support the community schools in the county. I happen to work in Alameda County Office of Ed. There are 18 school districts inside of Alameda County Office of Ed. Alameda County Office of Ed is trying to create a system where those 18 school districts and all of those schools within those school districts can have a streamlined method for accessing services, whether that's food, social welfare, counseling, whatever the case may be. So this is a heavy task. How are we seeing ourselves in each of those grants? What are the interests around with students who have learning differences? What are the interests and what are the conversations looking like at the implementation, the planning, and the coordination level to represent the interests of your group? Next slide, please. So how do we provide the support? The STAC creates the content and the methodology. That content and methodology is actually, we share with CDE, the California Department of Ed. It's actually approved. And then we provide professional development and training through collaboration and differentiated support with the regional technical assistance centers. California is divided up in 8 regions, but anyway, so we provide that support, professional development, and then it is the RTACs who then provide the training for all of the grantees. Whether you are at a school site, whether you're at the district, or whether you're at the county office level, the RTACs are providing the professional development. We're in a transition right now where the STAC is trying to move back because the RTAC was developed later than expected. So the STAC took on some of those roles, but we're now in the process of fully developing their abilities to meet the needs of all of the grantees. Next slide, please. And so as people who are on this call, as you take a look, California is divided up into 8 regions. And these regions have all of the grantees within it. People need to know where they're located within the 8 regions. And then people need to have a way to stay in contact with the people who are responsible for answering questions and providing the training for all of the grantees in their region. And when I say all of the grantees, like you got the Bay Area Capital, you see them, they're responsible for providing training for the coordination grantees, the planning grantees, and the implementation grantees. And there are some services that are actually offered. This is the method for delivering support that California Department of Ed and the STAC is responsible for. We have divided up into the 8 regions, and we're training people on the 4x4, which was shared earlier. We're training people on the community schools fundamentals. And then what does that mean in your context? Because schools and communities have different contexts as they think about the work itself. And of course, let's move forward, then I'll open up for questions. Let's move to the next slide, please. What are we talking about? We're talking about a whole child approach. In the midst of all this, we're talking about all this community school stuff. We're talking about all the strategies, the 4x4. But in the end, what we're talking about is a whole child approach. Next slide, please. The whole child approach looks at a child not like we used to. In the traditional method, we looked at a child as an entity that stood by itself. When the kid went to school and the kid sat in the classroom, we didn't want to deal with that touchy-feely stuff. We don't care what happened outside of the school. We don't care what happened in the hallways. You're now inside the classroom, and we viewed the child through a singular lens that we call academics. You're either getting an A, B, C, D, or an F. You're either a good student or a bad student. But we know that this did not serve all of our children. It did not even serve many of the children, that this was an unhealthy framework. And so in the community schools model, we deal with the whole school, the whole community, and the whole child. We view the child not as a single entity. That child, if you have a child in the school, that child represents a family. That child represents a community and all that is in that community, whether the good, the bad, the indifferent, that child comes from that. So when we begin to think about improving outcomes for our schools, we need to have this whole school, whole community, whole child model, which brings in multiple variables, right? We're looking at health education, physical education, nutrition, health services, counseling. This is why that community school strategy has to involve multiple stakeholders. We need individuals who are in organizations who are part of the success of that child to be part of the decision-making process inside of a school as we move forward. And the way schools are designed now, they are not designed for this participation. They are not designed for multiple voices. So the mindset and the shift that we're engaged in is literally trying to build a capacity of adults at multiple levels, at the state, at the county, at the LEA, and at the school site level. How do we change our mindsets so that we can lean into this work? Next slide, please. So as we think about changing these mindsets, that means that there has to be some capacity building. Capacity building around what? Around the things that we have identified as needing to change. If we are talking about now inclusive leadership, that means there's some things need to change for principals, administrators inside of buildings. If we're talking about at the school site level, the decision-making body, the decision-making team at the school site is a real decision-making body, and at central office, at the district office level, that they're advisory, things need to change. Because in our existing system, there's a lot of authority and power in central office and district office, where that power is being shifted in the community schools model to the school site. If we have parents participating and a person who held multiple IEPs, some of the language that we use in those IEP meetings, it's very intimidating because it is a jargon that's specific to people who are steeped in a bureaucratic system and who have their degrees. And sometimes that's very intimidating. So then how do we support the capacity development or building of administrators to use less jargon, How do we support parents to learn some of that jargon? These are things that we have to identify. If we identify these things as important, then we then say, this is what the capacity building needs to be so that we can shift the mindset. And then, of course, we're talking about infrastructure. What needs to change at the school site, at the district level, at the state level, at the county office level? How do we make this sustainable? What policy needs to shift? So as we think about all these things within inside of the community schools framework, as we talk about the 4x4, as we looked at the fundamentals, how the system of support is designed, when we get down to the whole child framework, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to address mindsets, capacity building, infrastructure, and sustainability. We have to make meaning. And this is why community schools is not a program. It is a strategy that leans into conversation, and we need to have representation at that table so that this conversation can be expansive and inclusive of all of our students. Thank you. The next slide is, I'm sorry, there's one more slide. And I do want to end on this, and then I will say thank you. And this is a quote: "For we have always understood that when times change, so must we. That fidelity to our founding principles requires new responses to new challenges. That preserving our individual freedoms ultimately requires collective action." I believe that's former President Barack Obama. I think that encapsulates what we are engaged in right now in this conversation, where our individual freedoms ultimately require collective action. Hopefully, we can move forward and get this thing right. Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much for all the information that you shared with us. And, it was really enlightening for me to have the structure of the community schools program reinforced and really affirming that it's oriented at the school site level and, community based. And as I looked at the slides, I think it was 12 and 13, where you had all of the different players in the constellation and agencies, kind of disparate activities on slide 12, and then on slide 13, how they're all honed in and centered around the community schools. I was, and you may or may not have an answer for this. I wonder where the special ed leadership person, whether it's SELPA, special ed director in a district level, where that expertise is, brought to the table, and understanding the STAC's role, but just curious, the need to be explicit around, the invitation to the representatives of all kids in the community.
Absolutely. So what I will say is, and thank you for that question. I'm going to lean into my experiences as a site leader at MLK Middle School in the southeast section of San Francisco. When we talk about special education speaks to all three levels, right? It's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And one of the things that we noticed, at least I noticed it over my years, is that we got a lot of false positives because of what was not happening at the tier 1 level. So at the tier 1 level is where we say instruction occurs across the board. And what I found in my experience is that special education is not included in the tier 1 conversation around instruction. That's for people who do real content. That's for the math teachers, science, ELA, social studies. What we know about learning is that learning, and the people who really know about learning are literally special ed teachers, because they're the ones that literally understand how the cognition works, right? And so what we're now finding inside of general ed is that this one size fits all does not work, right? People learn at different rates. People have different strengths, right? These are all things that we know inside of special education. And we know these not only from a theoretical perspective, but we also know it from a practical expectation, from on the ground work and experiences. How are we folded into the conversations around tier 1 at the site level and also at the district level? Where is SELPA in the conversation around the planning for the scope and sequence of teacher professional development, of administrative professional development, right? Of people who are the TSAs who are going to be doing the coaching? What do they know about this from the tier 1 level leading into the tier 2 level? Now, the part where they get separated out is at the tier 3, where it becomes very specialized, and then that's when we really shine. But I do think that there's an opportunity for us to hold conversations of what's happening at the tier 1 level at the site and at the district, people are being, I came from a district that was in trouble. And then you have people running around because of overrepresentation of African-American students in special education. And then you have people running around, what are you guys doing around tier one? What are you guys doing around tier one? Well, this is after the fact. If we're going to be moving forward, how do people lean into this conversation before school starts? What should the tier one look like? And I do believe special education has a key component to explaining what accommodations and modifications can look like, especially when we start talking about universal design for learning. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And you know, there are other questions and comments. I would, as you were talking, I just wanted to uplift, you know, understanding the SX role and, you know, the RTAX role. Just wanted to highlight a potential connection with the Supporting Inclusive Practices project, who works with schools to increase their capacity to include all students. And so as the grantees are trying to envision what classrooms and schools look like, I just wanted to highlight that project as a resource to share, you know, pre-existing strategies and artifacts that already exist to support folks hitting the ground running. So with that, I will transition to Vice Chair Groff, who will facilitate the remaining comments and questions.
Do we have any comments from the board? I don't see anyone on the commission. Anybody online? Commissioner Snipes?
Thank you so much for your presentation. I am a member of Supporting Inclusive Practices, and I appreciate Chair Tostin bringing that to light. We do work with community schools grantees, as well as our own Supporting Inclusive Practices grantees. And there are so many through lines between the two initiatives. And I have to say, I really appreciate the way that you presented this today. From the first time that we heard about community schools to now, we see universal design for learning, and especially with the new updates to the guidelines that are really focused on social justice. But then also that rightful presence, just talking about the power. So there's so many connections, and I really appreciate you coming and giving this presentation today. And thank you so much.
So Michael, thank you. Yes, I really did appreciate your presentation on community schools, because we're really hopeful with this new work that we can really move inclusion forward. Where do you see some of the challenges, maybe either with mindset or with improving instruction, so that we can increase the number of our students with disabilities who can be successful in general education classrooms?
So what I would say some of the challenges that exist, and this is from my experience turning my school into a community school in 2015. And just to let you know, and we became the model school for community schools across the nation in terms of the work. I see some of the challenges existing in terms of how we view teachers. There's multiple levels. It's how we view teachers, administrators viewing teachers, and district viewing teachers. And then how teachers view administrators. And then over time, how teachers have separated content from special education. So if a kid is struggling inside your classroom, like, oh, well, this kid needs to be assessed, so I really can't do anything about that. This kid needs to be assessed. As opposed to, like, even if that kid is assessed, that kid is not going to be removed from your room unless something is so severe where the assessment dictates that kid needs to be in a separate environment, right? So situations where teachers don't understand how to do accommodation modifications, right? That's like a tier two response inside a tier one classroom. The tier two response, the academic intervention, that's at a tier one level. That's not a tier two thing. That's at a tier one level. That needs to be developed. How administrators then view teachers and what support should look like for teachers. Like, how do we find the time and the space so that teachers can actually lean into thinking about the work that they're doing with their students? How do we allocate funds so that teachers can be actually paid to make additional phone calls, spend additional time, so that when you have a classroom of 32 children that might have 6 different reading levels, and you might have 8 kids in there with IEPs, you might have 3 or 4 kids that have not been identified. The things that teachers are experiencing inside the space creates additional tensions. And how do we respond to that outside the space to support teachers? Because in this conversation, students and teachers are two sides of the same coin. And there are these narratives that exist that demonize students and teachers and administrators in the process. We need to change the narrative of demonizing and seeing these situations as opportunities to build community and find response to heal the interaction between students and teachers inside of content classrooms. I think it's the mindset that's the biggest challenge and what we've done traditionally.
I would definitely agree with you in terms of mindset. And I know that SIP has just identified demonstration schools now up and down the state. And, as Commissioner Stipes was saying with regard to SIP, I think that would be a great partnership so that some of your new community schools that are coming online can actually see how to move all of this forward so that all of our students benefit. I believe Commissioner Hamilton also has a question or comment.
I do. Thank you so much for the presentation. I learned a lot from this. I still am seeking some clarification around, forgive me, I'm a parent, so I don't know a lot of like the administrative and educational jargon. When you refer to level tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, what you mean by that. And I did not hear you ever use the term disabled, students with disabilities. I heard you refer to learning differences. And I'm from the camp that believes all students have differences in learning. So I want to just kind of tap more into if that includes students with all disabilities, including those with the most significant support needs, because I also am from the camp that I believe that all students can be included, even those with the most extensive support needs. So I'd like some clarification around that and where those complex students kind of live in this whole program and process.
Thank you for that question. So what I will say is this, the language, we are now living in a world where the language that you use can be used against you, where I'm being honest, right? So there has been this thing going on where you say children with learning differences, that's all inclusive of kids that have IEPs. That has nothing to do with ability in terms of physical ability. And we also know that when doing the assessment, only the most extreme cases will call for a separate environment. But even some of those places, you're trying to figure out how to fully include children. So this of calibrating language. And so if there was something that was interpreted as not including children who might have some other disabilities, that was not what was meant by children with learning differences. That language covers all children with learning differences, right? So there's that. So hopefully that's clear. So maybe so in this could be an opportunity for this group to support us in finding the right language so that we can then be using that throughout the state when we talk about students, right? So I always see opportunities. And then the other thing around tier 1, tier 2, 3, please forgive me. That's me jumping into my education lingo. I should have established what that meant. So at the tier 1 level, that's what everybody receives. Right? And in our language called tier 1, you get it when you walk into the building. There's tier 1 academic instructions. And when I say everybody gets it, everybody gets a math class, science class, English, social studies, etc., PE. Tier 1 also includes you have access to supports, like everybody gets a referral process. Everybody has access to the suspension process. So tier 1 means everyone has access to it. Tier 2, when going about tier 1 services, where the academic or social support, social emotional support, if you identify that students might have some challenges around the tier 1 supports, whether academic or social emotional behavioral, then you provide what is called intervention. The intervention then reveals whether you just needed some additional supports, or you might surface that a higher level of need is required. That would be tier 2. If you identify, so then tier 2, you're getting this level of support that is connected to what has been identified. You might get a check-in, check-out pass. It might be a school note home. That's at the tier 2 level. But you also might discover that there are some significant learning differences where then you might need to be assessed for an IEP. That would then be the tier 3 level, where you would get some specialized support that's assessed and identified need, you will now get the support based upon identified need. So in our system, we call them tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
Thank you. Commissioner Ruiz?
I want to thank you for coming out and making this presentation for us. And I really want to applaud you for just being down to earth and rolling with the questions and kind of understanding that this is a new ginormous thing that is being rolled out, and that there are going to be a ton of bugs, you know, whether you're ready for them or not. That being said, I would really love to invite you to partner with the family empowerment centers that are up and down the state, because they are largely parent run and parent led, meaning that we have children with disabilities of all sorts, whether they're learning differences or special medical fragility, just everything, low incidence. And we can definitely be valuable to helping with this rollout. And then just to understand too where some of our concerns are. I mean, we're just starting to kind of break ground, and we're still so far behind with our kids with disabilities and getting, parents engaged and learning how to navigate. So you can only imagine how some of us feel about this brand new system and all the tiers and all this stuff, to just to make sure that our kids are getting top of the line and not kind of like leftovers, and what little pieces that might be offered. We just want to make sure that they are absolutely considered at every level, at every tier in the front. So,
Can you share the name of that the family organization again?
Family Empowerment Centers. We are all up and down the state. I believe we have 41. We are in every county now. So you can reach out to me personally. I can help you with that and just give you numbers of different ones, that all the way from down here, mine in Imperial Valley, all the way up to the top. They're everywhere. And we would love to help you with this. As, obviously this advisory council.
I will definitely want to get your information. And I do want to share something when I do believe in this partnership. So I will get your information.
Partnerships are good. Relationships are absolutely everything, right?
So I showed you the structure, and I shared that we are developing content and methodology. We are going to open up our working groups to include people from the community on a variety of things that we're engaged in inside the STAC. We're going to be looking for parents, students, organizations. I think this would be a great opportunity for your agency or group to literally find ways to then insert themselves in the development of content and methodology that we're now going to be doing professional development and supporting the RTACs to feed out to the grantees. I think being able at the center, being part of the center and development of some things will help us move forward.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Michael, as always, it's a joy to hear you talk about the work that's taking place. And please send our regards to everyone else in the STAC. And I know there were a number of folks who had commitments today and couldn't join. Michael represents a very large team. And so we send our best to them, and thank you for the time that you shared with us today.
Thank you all for even allowing me to be here. Hey, you guys have a special place in my heart. 15 years. I love you all, and thank you for your presence and time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, we will transition to public comment. I will ask if you could share the slide that provides the instructions for members of the public wishing to call in. And for anyone in the room wishing to make public comment, if you would begin lining up now.
Commissioner Tostin, I don't see anyone in the room. Thank you.
Thank you. We will hold just a few more moments for anyone calling in.
Caller ending in 7407. If comfortable, please state your name and affiliation and begin public comment. Speaker, you will have exactly 1 minute. Your time starts now.
Hi, this is Judy McKinley calling. Mr. Eason, thank you for a very valuable conversation and dealing with learning disabilities and learning differences. Our kids with learning disabilities are, in my opinion, neglected by this group regularly. Multi-tiered systems of support have been in place for a number of years. In my opinion, neither do the teachers nor the parents understand multi-tiered systems of support, and it is important that they do. It cannot be a way to let kids go without getting services, which we have seen in many cases that there are it slows down the process for kids to actually get identified. Anyway, thank you so very much for doing this presentation.
Thank
It was
you.
very valuable.
Are there any additional public comments online?
There are no callers at this time.
All right, with that, we will close item 4 and transition into item 5. Very happy to have Diane Crum from the CDE with us to provide an overview of the dual enrollment program in California, or dual enrollment structures and policies in California. It's my understanding Diane's in the room, so we will yield the space to you.
Hello, thank you. My name is Diane Crum. I'm an education programs consultant at the California Department of Education, and I also oversee dual enrollment here, the K-12 side of dual enrollment. So today, I just wanted to provide an overview on dual enrollment, starting with what has happened and what is happening, and then have, of course, questions at the end. So I just wanted to start with this useful timeline that illustrates the increased legislative support for dual enrollment, or attention to dual enrollment. In 2015, AB 288 passed, which began the college and career access pathways. And this is a focus on serving students who wouldn't otherwise attend college. And since then, as you can see on the timeline, a streamlined legislation has been passed that streamlined and also served to improve the CCAP by removing some barriers, such as difficult board approval requirements, restrictions on offering impacted classes, expanding to county offices of education, allowing juvenile and court and continuation schools to offer dual enrollment, and removing sunset dates and statewide caps on the number of students that could attend dual enrollment, and also clarifying the definition of underrepresented students. So a lot has been, and at the end, we see the CCC roadmap, which I'll go over in a minute. That's the California Community College roadmap. And then Vision 2030 as well, which is from the community college. So we've had a lot implemented in a short amount of time, but much remains to be done on this solid foundation. So some common baselines for state work when I work with my external partners that you can see at the bottom: the Department of Education, the California Coalition of Middle and Early Colleges, the Career Ladders Project, the California Community Colleges, and then the California Alliance of Dual Enrollment partnerships. So this is some baseline work that we've set. And first, defining dual enrollment, and that is when a student is enrolled in both high school and college at the same time. It doesn't matter whether they go to the college, whether the faculty comes to the high school or the high school teacher teaches the college course. It's all called dual enrollment. And then measuring equity in dual enrollment, we want to make sure we focus on comparing the representation of student groups participating in dual enrollment to the representation of those student groups in the high school or the district. And then finally, we want to avoid random acts of dual enrollment where the students are just taking random college courses. And we want to make sure we set clear and intentional dual enrollment pathways of at least 12 college credits for all high school students. And that it leads to something. It leads to a certificate, it leads to a degree, it leads to a transfer pathway to a community college. There are several types of dual enrollment in California. On the right side, or sorry, the left side is the highly structured type of dual enrollment all the way across to the less structured side. So I'll begin on the left side at our middle college high school. So a middle college high school is an integrated structure, meaning the high school and college courses are integrated right into the courses that are offered. Most students receive an AA or an AS degree upon graduation from high school. And the focus of this is to mitigate the dropout rate for at-promise students. It's an autonomous standalone school with a CDS code, the county school district code. And it resides on a college campus according to Ed Code right now. In contrast, an early college high school, it also is integrated, has an integrated structure. Most students will receive an AA or AS degree upon graduation. It also mitigates the dropout rate for at-promise students. It's an autonomous school with a CDS code, but it is not located on a community college campus like the middle college high school. And also, the early college high school is not to be confused with a program. So many comprehensive high schools have a program where maybe out of the 1,000 students, 200 students are enrolled in dual enrollment, and they go through like a cohort. So an early college, again, is a standalone school. And then we have CCAP, which is the AB 288 that I mentioned, the college and career college and career access pathways at the high school. So it's focused on pathways. Its classes are closed, meaning that only high school students will take those classes. It has embedded support. So the students are supported by either teachers, like one model could be that the college teacher comes to the campus or the faculty member and teaches the course, and the high school teacher is in the classroom providing support on the days that the college course does not happen. The focus is on not college bound or underrepresented students. They have a data sharing agreement between the college and the high school so that it's real live data, and the high school can see when the students in the college classes are struggling. And then it's 15 units or 4 college courses in the CCAP. And then the non-CCAP, which is, it's also governed by agreement, but it's not a CCAP, it's not part of legislation. It's usually an MOU with the community college district and the high school. So in law, it's advanced scholastic or CTE courses, but in reality, it's all courses, just like the CCAP. And these classes are open to the community. So in a CCAP, they're closed. Only the high school students can attend those classes. But if you have a non-CCAP, even if your course is on a high school campus, anyone in that community, if they choose to, can go to that course. And then the non-CCAP, they're only able to take 11 units per semester. The students are only able to take 11 units. And then we also have the individual. These are just high school students across the state that enroll and attend community college without a designed dual enrollment program. And these students usually have college knowledge. Their parents probably have gone to college and helped them to navigate the system. So this is participation by type of dual enrollment. So on the left side, you can see special admit. A special admit is the term that is used for any high school student that has not graduated from high school taking college courses. So you can see here that and this is for the blue is the 21-22 year, and the gold is the 22-23 year. So our special admit, non-CCAP, non-middle college, early college, high school is still the highest number of participation by our high school students. In the middle, we have our CCAP. Between the year, though, you could see that CCAP has increased quite a bit. And then on the right side, we have our middle college and early college, which it has also increased, but just not as dramatically as the CCAP. So Vision 2030, this is the roadmap for the California community colleges. It's a collaborative action plan that provides focus, equity, and direction to community colleges. And it's an iterative plan, and it prioritizes data, student-centered strategies, to bring college to our communities and equitably strengthen access, support, and success. And then, of course, we also have strong support from Governor Newsom. The California Community College Roadmap calls for increasing the number of students who graduate with 12 or more college units through dual enrollment by 15%. And of course, establishing pathways for dual enrollment to ensure that their pathway is leading somewhere, and then closing equity gaps for dual enrollment programs. So now moving on to students with disabilities and dual enrollment. So dual enrollment students are both high school students and college students. So students receive accommodations and modifications through their home high school for their high school courses, but they also have access to college support services within the community college system. And so to request accommodations, students can formally contact their school's Disabled Student Programs and Services, or DSPS, or the American Disabilities Act coordinator. And usually there's a counselor, either the special education teacher or the counselor that works with dual enrollment students, or a lot of times the partnership between the high school and the college. They'll have a college advisor come to the high school. They help the students to make sure they get to that office to work with the office for their accommodations. So the DSPS program provides support services and educational accommodations to students with disabilities so that they can have full and equitable access to the community college experience. And many colleges provide specialized instruction as part of their DSPS program, and an academic accommodation plan is developed for each student that is served by the DSPS. And according to the community college, the chancellor's office, these are some examples of support services that the colleges offer our dual enrollment students. So test proctoring, assessment for learning disabilities, specialized counseling, interpreter or captioning services for hearing impaired or deaf students, mobility assistance, note taker assistance, reading services, transcription services, access to adaptive equipment, job development placement, registration assistance, special parking, and specialized instruction. And this first data set shows us, this is from the chancellor's office. I've asked them to run some data for me. And so this data shows that the unique students is the number of students that there may not be duplicated. They're not duplicated. Sorry, let me say that again. So the unique students are not duplicated. So when they ran the data, the special admit only, we have 192,937 special admit students in California. And then when they ran the students with disabilities plus the special admit, we have 3,895 students. And from what I'm told by the chancellor's office, that's the 3,895 is not included in the 192. So you can see fall 2022, we had 1,670 students with disabilities, special admit students, and then 129,642 special admit only. And then we increased with spring of 2023 to 2,467 students with disabilities, and then 139,900 students, special admit students. And this is our course success rate. So for 22-23. So in the fall semester of 2022, our special admit students had an 80% success rate, and our students with disabilities had a 76%. In fall quarter of 2022, 88% of our special admit students had a course success rate, and 86% for our students with disabilities. Winter session, 65% special admit and 71% students with disabilities. Winter quarter, 91% and 88%. Spring semester, 83%, 78%. And then spring quarter 2023, 92% and 88%. So we still do have some work to do on this. And this is the 2022-23 overall success rate. So our special admit students had a success rate of 81%, and our students with disabilities had a 78% success rate. And persistence, our persistence rate. So this data shows our persistence rate. And persistence rate is defined as enrolling in like a fall semester and then a spring semester, or the winter intersession and then the spring semester. So 2 consecutive semesters in a row, or sessions in a row. So actually our students with disabilities are persisting a little bit better than our special admit students. So moving on, the College and High School Alliance, it's a coalition of national, state, and local organizations that collaborate to positively impact national and state policies in dual enrollment. So in 2019, they published this publication called Unlocking Potential, and it's a state policy roadmap for equity and quality in college and our dual enrollment programs for students with disabilities. And at the end of the publication, they provide some key recommendations for dual enrollment: inclusive vision, explicit design, and supportive guidance. So I wanted to share with you these key recommendations and how California is stacking up to what this report came out with. So inclusive vision, as defined in the first recommendation from this publication, is state policymakers should review all policies related to college and dual enrollment to ensure that students with disabilities are intentionally and explicitly included. This will send a clear message to schools, districts, post-secondary institutions to encourage participation of these students. So in California Education Code 76004, it ensures that students with disabilities are intentionally and explicitly included. The language in this section defines underrepresented students in higher education as first-time college students, low-income students, students who are current or former foster youth, homeless students, students with disabilities, and students with dependent children as well. And the language in Ed Code also promotes the purpose of offering or expanding dual enrollment opportunities for students who may not already be college bound or who are underrepresented in higher education, with the goal of developing seamless pathways from high school to community college for career technical education or preparation for transfer. Continuing with the inclusive vision, in 2022, the California Legislature allocated $200 million for the Dual Enrollment Opportunities Grant per California Education Code 41585. And so this gave LEAs a one-time grant of $100,000 per school to expand or establish a CCAP, or $250,000 per district to expand or establish a middle college, high school or program, or an early college high school or program. And so the purpose, the reason why I point this out is that the language in the grant explicitly states that when grantees are planning to expand, and the language is the same for both the middle college grant and the CCAP grant, but that outreach shall be focused on families and students who may not be college bound or who are underrepresented in higher education. And I just thought I would add in, so the first round of the grants, we had over 600 grantees. And this is just some data for students with disabilities being served by our grantees. So this is self-reported data through a baseline data report that I sent out to the grantees. We don't have outcome data yet. In 2027, I'll have outcome data when the final report to the legislature is published. But according to the self-reported data, we have 146 students with disabilities in the middle college high schools, 244 in early college, 85 in early college programs, and then 2,570 in our CCAP programs. The second key recommendation, according to this publication, is explicit design. And it states that state and school leaders should design and implement dual enrollment programs and policies as a strategy to improve outcomes for students with disabilities. Compliance with disability laws is only the starting point. Improving access and success in these programs is the goal. And so I don't have data, hard data for you, but I do have anecdotally data that our dual enrollment practitioners are working hard to be sure that dual enrollment opportunities are equitable. And our baseline data report shows that the dual enrollment grantees are committed to improving outcomes for all students, and they are actively utilizing their funding to foster equity and inclusion for underrepresented students in dual enrollment. So these were just some things I took from some of the baseline data, the things that they're working on. So planning initiatives aimed at addressing student equity and seamlessly integrating dual enrollment programs into broader district goals, targeting outreach and resources for underrepresented students, making sure that we have equitable access to that all students can participate in dual enrollment programs, promoting inclusivity and diversity in educational opportunities. Direct student support, such as tutoring, and then allocated extra hours for counselors and teachers to assist students with success in enrollment processes. And then moving on to the third key finding is supportive guidance. And so according to the publication, supportive guidance, state leaders should develop and issue field guidance for both secondary and post-secondary stakeholders on the range of programs, services, and funding streams that can be used to support students with disabilities in dual enrollment. So I take on this as to mean as the consultant in the program office for dual enrollment. This hits, I guess, at home for me. And so I just wanted to show you some things that the CDE is doing to help support dual enrollment and our students with disabilities. So first, the grant that I mentioned earlier, the legislature did not provide technical assistance money like the community schools grant. And so I was actually able to go out and get a private grant from College Futures Foundation. I had over 600 grantees in the first round, and I have over 300 in the second round. So I have quite a few grantees. So I was able to get a private grant to provide technical assistance by Career Ladders Project and the California Coalition of Middle and Early Colleges. And they are providing webinars, they're providing office hours, they're providing, they're showing LEAs how to use their data to make sure that their programs are equitable for all students. We also have started to help improve guidance to dual enrollment practitioners and to encourage high quality dual enrollment programs, because we don't just want dual enrollment, we want high quality dual enrollment. And so in 2023, our office created the California Exemplary Dual Enrollment Award. And this is to help with our vision to improve educational outcomes for students who may not be college bound or who are underrepresented in the higher education through the promotion of high quality dual enrollment. And so the purpose of this award is to identify and recognize schools that have exemplary dual enrollment programs and allow these schools to share their exemplary programs and practices that have contributed to their success. And we hope, and I think it's working, that this award will encourage other schools to strengthen and expand their dual enrollment offerings, especially associated with students of color, students with disabilities, socially, economically disadvantaged, and first in the family to attend college. So this award is they actually, to apply for the award, they have to fill out, write about a narrative and provide evidence. And so these are the categories. They have to give an overview of their dual enrollment program. They have to have strong partnership or talk about their college partnerships, equitable access and outcomes. If they have equity gaps, they won't get the award. They need to have no equity gaps in their access and outcomes, integration with college and districts, conversion of college credits, shared student data, pathway design, and then of course, embedded student support. We want to make sure that that embedded student support is there for them. And so with some the grant money that I got to provide technical assistance to the grantees, I had some money set aside, and so I went out and visited the first year. We had 9 award winners. So out of 70 applicants, we had 9 awardees for the Exemplary Dual Enrollment Award. So I visited all the sites and made a video. So I just wanted you to hear some of the things they're doing for equity in their words. Whoopsie. Uh-oh. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this. I think I need to use the mouse too. There we go. Should work, I hope. That's going to just change my slide, huh? Oh, maybe it's not up. Yeah. Well darn. There should be like a play button here where I just click on it and it plays. Can you do it in the PowerPoint deck, maybe? Like, escape? Okay, let's try that. I did embed it, yeah. Oh, shoot. Well, maybe at the end I can show them if I have time. Thanks. Okay, sorry. I really did want you to see that, but maybe at the end I can pull it. I do have the Vimeo code, so I can hopefully get on it. But in the video, you would see that they say all students throughout for equity. All students have access. Many schools, all their students take a 9th grade college course. And they support students with IEPs, students that are first time to the country. So many of the LEAs mention all students. The other thing that we have done in our office to help support our not just our grantees, but all dual enrollment practitioners from the state, is a quarterly dual enrollment newsletter. So the first volume went out last fall. It has a grantees corner for the grantees. It shares best practices from across the state. So I have contact different schools that I've been in contact with or I've seen at conferences, and I have them share what they've done. I do, starting in fall of 2024, I thought that I would include a section for underrepresented students, and I do have my first article will be for students with disabilities from a school that is serving their students with disabilities and advice and guidance for our schools. And this is exciting, but started in October. Actually, tomorrow we're going to record our first podcast, but the first episodes of the Bridge to Success Navigating Dual Enrollment podcast will debut. And the podcast will feature dual enrollment stories from around the state. The topics of these stories include equity and inclusion, building strong partnerships, student recruitment and enrollment strategies, pathway design, supporting dual enrollment strategies, both socially and, students, both socially and academically. And then looking way, way in the future, in 2024, as I mentioned, the technical support grant that I received is only for 2 of the 4 years of the grant. And so I decided that I would try to create a dual enrollment community of practice for the last 2 years where the grantees are helping each other. Well, it's really going to be for all dual enrollment practitioners across the state, but this will be coming in 2025. So that we make sure our underrepresented populations have equal access to college courses. And this, of course, is just a list of resources that from all of the organizations that I've talked about during this presentation. If you want to look at that on your own time, and then Q&A.
Diane, thank you so much for all the information, and really appreciate the inclusion of the data and how explicit you were about the dual enrollment being one of the bridges to more equitable outcomes and the intentional efforts to increase the numbers of or increase the access by students of disabilities for this program. I know if you told me when I was in high school that I could start getting ahead on college credit, I would have signed up for that in a minute. And I can just envision the number of the students that I've worked with over the years, even in alternative ed, who needed to see an educational future for themselves, and a pathway while they were still committed to high school. So Diane, thank you so much. Before I open up for other comments and questions, it appears the video might be ready to go.
Sorry for such technical difficulties. Is the presentation sent out to everyone? Okay. So the link to the video is in the PowerPoint, so you can watch the video there. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Vice Chair Groff, I'll transition to you to facilitate other comments and questions.
Or any comments from the board, from the commission?
Thank you so much for your presentation. And I just wanted to share that what I kept thinking all throughout was that not too long ago, I was in a high school setting and we were really struggling trying to figure out how to even get our students who needed a support period access to an elective. This wasn't even on our radar. And so I'm thrilled and so appreciative of the work that you're doing. And Chair Tostin used the word intentional and I think equity as well. And I'm just blown away by how far we've come in a short time and excited about where we're going in the future. So thank you.
Yes, it has been a short time, but we are making great strides. So not perfect, but
our other classes. What is being done, again, counselors are the gateway for enrollment. So is there any type of mindset training, training happening to counselors to show them that the student success rate, to encourage them to enroll more students?
so I can't speak to some of the, most of the grantees are using their grant money to hire a counselor to help support those students. And outreach is, of course, one of the #1 goals is to make sure that all students, families know. So dual enrollment night, like back to school night, dual enrollment night. So they are using funding to make sure that the word is spread, that this is for all students. Okay.
Okay, I think we have a comment from our commissioners online. Commissioner Hayakawa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's exciting to see the opportunities. And I think as Chair Tostin had said, there are many students who might be more engaged in their high school if they know that there are opportunities to take these other classes and get a glimpse of what their future could be in terms of getting access or even considering higher education. So for many of our groups, and you've identified them as those that you were now trying to really encourage and get the numbers of involvement increased. As for students with disabilities, my own daughter actually is going to be starting high school and she will be dual enrolled. And we just started navigating this process because this is completely different from anything we've looked at before. And so I guess when you were talking about student success in increasing that for students with disabilities, we discovered that we were sort of alone in terms of figuring out the difference between what is available for students' support at the IEP level going K through 12 versus at the college level, maybe more in the 504 accommodations realm. And I wondered if in the materials that are rolling out, if there's an expectation of having the student's current IEP team or 504 team work with the parents and perhaps work with the College Disabilities Center to help support those students, because I understand that the same supports are not available at the college level, and just try to help with that transition. I wonder if that's something that's expected or if that would be something that could be promoted at some point at the state level for all our districts to find a way to make the support more seamless between the high school to the college, not just for after graduation, but in this dual enrollment setting as sort of a way of transitioning as well. Thank you.
Sure. So it does depend LEA by LEA. However, that's why I started like the dual enrollment newsletter, so I could gather best practices and then share those with dual enrollment practitioners. So hopefully, if something is working in a school, they can say, "Oh, that will work for us as well."
And then again, just talking to different schools, LEAs out there, it is the student's responsibility in college to go to the DSPS office. However, they do have their counselor, either the special education teacher at the high school, or the counselor, or the advisor that comes from the college should be connecting those students to the DSPS office so that they do get their full support. So it is something that definitely is on my radar now, or on my mind a lot. And so being sure to intentionally include that in the newsletter, in the podcasting, as a best practice.
Thank you. And then I guess as a follow-up, I will check out the last slide, I think, with all your resources. I wondered if, in addition to the best practices for the districts or the LEAs, if there are resources for parents who are trying to help their students navigate in this dual enrollment process, because it is so different from what we are used to doing in the K through 12 setting. And we're not yet there going into, the college level in terms of helping them there. And I wondered if any of the resources are addressing parents specifically. If not, many of us will be happy to look through what the resources are out for the LEAs, but I wondered if there was anything planned for parents as well. Thank you.
Yes, there are resources for parents, and it is something that I definitely should add to my list. For example, for the podcast, when coming up with episodes like what we're going to cover, there were thoughts of having a parent section, but I just wasn't sure what I guess if parents would listen to it honestly, I guess. I know I'm a parent too, but, and so I was focusing mostly on the schools now, but that definitely is a very good idea, and I will add it to my list.
Great, thank you so much.
Commissioner Wilkins?
I just had a question on slide 16 with the data in terms of the DSPS students plus special admit number. Is that early college, middle college, CCAP, non-CCAP all aggregated together, or is that just students that are attending at a community college? Or
that is, so the special admit is it's all of those. So it's any high school student that has not graduated from high school taking a college course. So it's all of those students.
Thank you.
Chair Tostin, I think that's all of the questions or comments.
I believe Commissioner Liu has her hand up.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
Hi,
Commissioner
thank
Liu.
you very much. Thank you. And thank you very much for your presentation. I'm a school board member with 34 schools in my district, and 3 of our adult schools have these CTE classes that you're talking about. So these are for the kids who, or for the adults who are past a certain age. And 4 out of our 5 high schools have dual enrollment. But the number, the ones that are formally enrolled in dual enrollment with our community college is not that high. We started not long ago after I came in. And I'm actually wondering, I don't have the data of how many of those students are students with disabilities, but I'm actually wondering how I can maybe further increase that number. And also in terms of CTE, I'm looking at your chart that talked about the CCAP at high schools, but the focus is on students not college bound or underrepresented. Our focus was CTE, which we have improved dramatically over the years from 6 pathways when I first came in, and now 17 pathways. Those are not necessary for the non-college bound and underrepresented. So I was, and we do have a good number, quite a few students with disabilities there. I was wondering, like, how, I guess that would not fall under your CCAP at high schools. That's my second question. First question being how I can increase the number of special students who can be enrolled in the dual enrollment?
I think one recommendation for increasing enrollment in increasing enrollment for dual enrollment for all students is making it an opt-out. So it's just everybody's going to take a college course in their 9th grade. And if you have to opt out to not be able to take it. So that's one way to increase participation by all students, is just making it in even 12 units. If you just do in freshman year, you're going to take this class, a counseling class usually, or a college success class is what they usually take. In your sophomore year, you're going to take this class. In your junior year, you'll take this class. In some kind of pathway. If you have 17 pathways, that's a really good start to try to have maybe students choose a pathway and take some courses in that pathway as well for the, but definitely the 9th grade college success course would help increase the number of students enrolled.
Do you mind if, I'm not familiar with a 9th grade college success course. Is that what some districts have in terms of like a class to teach you how to go to college? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So yes, the college success course would be, obviously it's given by the college, but they should have a college success course at the community college, and then you just add that to your CCAP agreement or your MOU, whatever you're on, and they offer that. They offer that course as part of the agreement.
I see. I'll look into that college success course from our community college to my school district. But I mean, thank you so much for your presentation. I really, I'm going to look more into programs and policies, looking at those in terms of a strategy to improve the outcomes for our students with disability. So thank you very much. I very much appreciate your presentation.
Do you want to ask your second question again? I'm sorry.
My second question
had to do with your CTE pathways.
Yeah, the CTE pathways. Those are not, the ones I have are not specifically designed for college-bound and underrepresented students. We have quite a number of those, but the CTEs, I mean, is not what you're talking about here, because in your chart at the high school, CCAP at high school and on CCAP at high school, those are what the ones that you're talking specifically for, the students with disadvantages, right?
So the CCAP could be a CTE pathway, and so
yes,
you take your beginner course at the high school, and the middle course may be a college course that they take, and then their capstone course. Or there may be a longer pathway that they can, take the 3 CTE courses from the high school, and then there's another course at the college to add in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, it does. But our capstone classes usually are classes that we ourselves provide from the district. And these classes are not exactly open to the community, except for the adult school classes, then yet for specific careers, then they are. So that's not what you're talking about, right? In terms of your chart from earlier.
Correct. No, that is not. So the CCAP courses would be college courses. So you may have a CTE pathway that's all high school courses, but then they may have an additional course that they take from the college.
Yes, I'm sorry. Maybe I misspoke, miscommunicated. They are college courses. They are dual enrollment for some of the capstone classes. The college teachers come to our school district and specifically address the students and teach the students. But I'm saying that your chart that I'm looking at, it's not open to the community. It's just specific for us. It's not open. It's just for the high school students. So this does not fall under your category, right?
So do you have a CCAP agreement with does the district have a CCAP agreement with the community?
I know that we have an MOU.
So that's the difference. So a CCAP agreement, so that would be the non-CCAP agreement. Your MOU is your non-CCAP agreement. So if you had a CCAP agreement, the courses would be closed. The students would be able to take additional units, because 11 units on an MOU versus 15 for CCAP. You'd have a data sharing agreement with those, with your community college partners. So you'd have live data to see what the students are doing, to make sure you have your early alert system set up so that if a student is failing, they can get support right away, so that they don't waste a semester in college, or they don't get that on their transcript, or if they have to drop it and retake it at a later time. So those are the advantage of actually having a CCAP agreement. Switching over from the MOU to a CCAP agreement.
I'll look into that. Thank you so much for addressing my questions. I just want to clarify more about this, because I think dual enrollment is the key, and also, especially in terms of students with disabilities, this helps so much more in terms of how they can be more productive members of a society. So thank you.
And if you
I'll look into all that.
Just so you know as well, we have a third round of our grant will be coming out in February. So if you want to, you can get $100,000 to change over to your CCAP. So
thank you for that.
Well, Diane, thank you so much for the information. We will obviously probably circle back some time in the future to keep tabs on the progress. And if there's any additional information that you believe in time we should be aware of or abreast of as you're deciding on programs that win awards. If there's ever a program that you identify that has best practices or promising practices in their work with students with disabilities, please let us know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
With that, I'll ask any members of the public in the room wishing to make public comments to line up. And I would ask that the slide for members of the public wishing to call in be displayed.
There are no comments within the room.
Okay, we'll hold for an additional few moments for those calling in.
There are no callers at this time.
Okay. With that, we will close item 5. We are going to take a short break. I'm going to try and get us back on schedule. So we'll take a 7-minute break and be back at 2:50 to begin item 6. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. We are going to transition into item 6. We're very pleased to have a presentation from Zach Smith, focused on inclusive access to a diploma, reimagining proficiency for students with disabilities. We've had a number of presentations on I don't want to say the wrong pathway to a diploma, but want to continue to deepen our understanding. And Zach, I want to thank you so much for the time you've put into preparing this presentation and for being with us today. I yield the space to you.
Thanks, David. So hello, everyone. Zach Smith, Senior Project Director with WestEd in the Special Education Policy and Practice Division. And so excited to talk to you today about this initiative. I'm the initiative lead on the WestEd side, but definitely it's been a team effort at all layers. So big thank you to everyone, including those that are in the room or on Zoom that have been a part of the feedback and developments of this work. So just going to walk through a bit of the presentation and hope develop an understanding of what this initiative is about. And then I'll hold the floor for questions and things like that. But obviously, whatever you need in the way of meeting making is welcome. Partners in this initiative, so obviously we have the California Department of Education, the California State Board of Education, and then WestEd working shoulder to shoulder on this effort. And a big thanks to all that are involved. So the goal of this presentation is really just to inform California constituents on the purpose, strategy, materials, and feedback gathering structures, because we're right in the middle of that right now, candidly, for the Inclusive Access to a Diploma, Reimagining Proficiency for Students with Disabilities initiative. So within this presentation, how you know that you're starting to kind of get a sense of what this all is about is you'd be able to restate the core focus of the initiative. You'd be able to have enough context around the background of the initiative to be able to ask probing questions. And for sure, we're welcoming feedback at all phases of this initiative because we know it's such big, important work. So as we get ready today to jump into it, welcome you all to reflect on any questions that you might have or what you need from this process. And know that we're here and excited to share. Okay, so the scope of this work. This is one of the slides that I'm going to read just because this frames out, I think, the goal of the initiative. The goal of the Inclusive Access to a Diploma, Reimagining Proficiency for Students with Disabilities initiative is to create or curate resources, coursework, and performance tasks for California educators to use when providing students with disabilities alternative means of expression to complete prescribed courses of study needed to meet the state minimum graduation requirements for a standard diploma. This work aligns with SB 154 and SB 102 legislation and its priorities, and really centers on this goal as a tool for increasing graduation for students with disabilities, graduation rates for a standard or regular diploma. So students with disabilities by the numbers, 13.1% of students in California have a disability. This is according to the California dashboard. As of 2023, 86.4% of all students are graduated with a diploma. And then within that group, when we're looking at students with disabilities, 72.7% of students with disabilities graduated with a diploma. And so you can see the trend line there as well per the state dashboard. And so this is something that we're really trying to target and think about with this initiative is how do we increase the number of students with disabilities graduating with that standard diploma? So one of the things that we try to do is frame out a visual of the challenge. Students with disabilities will have an individualized education program. Within that individualized education program, they'll have a series of accommodations, supplementary aids and services, definitions for specially designed instruction, and individualized education plan goals targeted to their needs. This provides a lot of flexibility for individual students to be able to access content in different ways and to get what they need from education. But at times, they're going into environments that don't always have that ability to be flexible, or they don't always have a paradigm for what this flexibility with it in terms of assessment or accommodation might look like. And so what we've tried to do in partnership with CDE, the graduation division, and CFERD is really think about, well, how do we understand the expectations of general education as it relates to graduation for a diploma based on the minimum requirements? How do we really understand those requirements so that we can work from that space to identify alternative means of expression for this student population? So here's an overview of the strategies we did in year one of this initiative. We generated a literature review looking at what the body of research says about how to support this population. We did a national survey of special education directors. We interviewed select states or representatives from the states to learn how they're supporting this population in innovative ways that allow for them to earn a diploma. We then surveyed California educators across the state to learn where those pockets of innovation are happening and what strategies are being deployed across the state to support this population. And then from there, we engaged with focus groups composed of students, families, teachers, administrators, counselors, and IEP team members. And one thing that I keep meaning to address, we also did interviews with California educators, specifically in those pockets that came up in the survey. So I need to add that bullet point, and it's on my list. So we've done a lot in order to prepare for what strategy we might deploy, and that's what leads us to this work of the initiative. So the Inclusive Access to a Diploma, Reimagining Proficiency for Students with Disabilities initiative is really focused on this idea of providing different routes up the mountain that is earning a diploma. So what we're trying to frame is that students with disabilities can communicate their understanding of graduation-based requirements in a myriad of ways. And so it's important for us to understand and have examples of what that might look like based on the rigor and course requirements defined within the curriculum frameworks and standards of the state. And so you can see this is our conceptual framework. It really starts with the defining and understanding what the peak of the mountain is with regard to the requirements. And then once we understand and define that peak space, and we then think about, okay, what are different ways that students with disabilities can communicate their understanding of those requirements that do not sacrifice the rigor, but are still personalized to their needs. And then from there, we've created a series of guidance documents and an overall strategy handbook for ways for LEAs at different levels, not just teachers, but multiple LEAs and state constituents to be able to deploy this strategy in their local context for students with disabilities. So we've started and we've been focused exclusively in this initiative on the state minimum requirements, which I won't read for you there, but they're in front of you. And we've selected different courses and different components of those state requirements and started to create resources that exemplify alternative means of expression or different ways for students to meet the requirements of a graduation-based coursework based on the minimum diploma. The way that we've structured these requirements is we've worked with subject matter experts that were provided to us by CFERD, the Curriculum Frameworks and Instructional Resources Division here at CDE. And these subject matter experts are either very proximal, some of them have even written portions of the content framework for different content areas, or they're very proximal to that at a statewide level of what this framework is about and how its requirements play their way out within each course. And so those subject matter experts helped us identify big ideas to the course, each course. And from those big ideas, we unpack standards that represent the success criteria of those big ideas. The math framework has been especially helpful for us. That was our starting place in this work for a myriad of reasons. One, the math framework is so new and has the big idea frame front and center to how it unpacks or defines courses. And two, because in our research that we did in year one, we found Algebra 1, Integrated 1, that initial math course to be one of the primary areas identified by LEAs across our state and even coming through in our state board waivers as the place where special students with disabilities were having trouble at times communicating understanding. And so by starting with the math framework, we really are excited about the big idea frame, and now we've been scaling the big idea frame to other courses across other content areas. So you can see this visual here. Big Idea 1 has a series of clustered standards representing the proficiency within that big idea 2, Big Idea 3. This, again, exemplifies that tip of the mountain in our conceptual framework. Once that's been identified, we then are curating, with the support of subject matter experts, examples of alternative means of expression, mostly in the form of performance tasks that allow students to communicate their understanding of these requirements in different ways. Specifically students with disabilities to be able to communicate their understanding of these requirements. And the idea here is to provide exemplars to LEAs so that they could either directly take those and utilize them as an assessment model, or the strategy itself. They could deploy the strategy itself for an individual student. Maybe Zach needs something beyond the performance tasks that we've curated. We've created that infrastructure so the IEP team can make that decision for an individual student. Sorry, a lot of talking. I'll slow down a little bit. So in terms of those roots up the mountain, if you will, when communicating proficiency, we've created, we're lovingly right now, because we don't know what else to call them, but right now it's alternative means of expression, this idea of horizontal versions of that and vertical versions of that. So horizontally, right, students can communicate their understanding through performance tasks, projects, portfolios, a traditional assessment. All of those are vehicles for a student to communicate their understanding of graduation-based coursework. And then within each of those vehicles, for example, in the way a student communicates their understanding of performance task, they can employ vertical alternative means of expression, meaning they could use speech-to-text software, they could use manipulatives, they could use text-to-speech. It's all dependent, of course, on the requirements of that big idea and the course area. But it's the idea that flexibility should be, in our opinion, and as we've been designing it for students with disabilities, more of the norm versus the exception. And so we're trying to model that in the resources that we've created. All right, so in terms of what those resources are at the recommendation or guidance level. So we have a best practice guide that defines almost like a handbook. It's a good 75 to what feels like 1,000 pages, but it really isn't 1,000 pages. It's 75 to 85 pages of here is the research base, here is the strategy, and then here's what this looks like across several content areas. And within that, we highlight bits and pieces of what the role is at the administrator level, how special education and general education or education specialists work together in order to curate these resources based on their differing expertise and spheres of influence, and how a community kind of understands this work. We then have practice briefs, which are designed to be quick and focused on different resources, different ideas, different content areas, targeting the needs of constituents at those different levels. So we have a practice brief for those at a school board to think about how they might adopt board policy. We have a practice brief for IEP teams with regard to decision-making processes that a group could deploy when selecting alternative means of expression for an individual student with disabilities. And then we have practice briefs for general education departments or general education teachers to think about how alternative means of expression can be woven within instruction for students with disabilities in those content areas. And then, like I said, we have those initiative creative resources where we have sample performance tasks. We have rubrics that align to the standards and the unpacked big ideas, lesson planning, decision trees and things of that nature that we see as helpful to actually do the work as tools for the field. All right, well, we're getting to the end here, but the feedback, we're in our public comment period. It started on August 5th and goes through the end of January as of right now. We're still developing resources and we're still kind of moving through the resource calibration process. But we do have a period of time where we have resources out on the web right now, and we're using a temporary interactive website and virtual town halls to gather feedback from constituents across the state. So this gives a bit of that information on how one might access those town halls. So we have one next week. Right now, 66 constituents across the state are registered to attend. We're very, very excited that we're to this phase. And then I'll go here because it's live. Maybe I will. Let's see. Maybe I don't know if the link will work. Anyway, the altmeans.org is an actual link that takes you to an interactive website where the public first can identify, like where we have curated experiences for the public if you're a student or family member, if you're a teacher, if you're an administrator, a counselor, or an IEP team member, to be able to kind of experience elements of the initiative based on your sphere of influence, and then to explore the resources. And then built within the website is a way for you to give soft feedback in terms of a thumb up or a thumb down, more targeted feedback in terms of comments, and then even spaces to upload your own ideas with regard to ways that you might see potential in this initiative. So altmeans.org, that's the live website. And right now it has general guidance as well as guidance for Integrated 1 and Algebra 1 content. So you can see that real time. And we'd love it if you shared this with your friends, just so that we can get as many constituents across the state giving us feedback. All right, so as we conclude, the work of this initiative closes June 2025. So our aim is to have that feedback back by the end of January, to do our final review, remediation, and then it will be housed on the CalTAN website, the California Special Education Technical Assistance Network website. And then it also will have a kind of a shell of experience on the California Educators Together website, where it's housed in CalTAN, but we've been working to integrate that CalTAN connection also to the California Educators Together website, so that we have as many places for constituents to grab those resources and the strategy of the work moving forward once we're through the public comment phase. Okay, so our goal for today is to inform California constituents on the purpose, strategy, materials, and feedback gathering structures of this initiative. We hope that you kind of get a sense of the method here behind this work. We welcome any sort of probing questions or clarifying questions. And as always, we're really, really interested in feedback from as many folks as we can gather it. I think now is the question time.
Well, Zach, thank you so much. I know I can confirm you hit 2 of 3, in that I think I can articulate the purpose, and I know how to provide feedback and the timeline. And I really wanted to just appreciate how clearly you articulated the information. The graphics were super helpful for me. And, the data you shared, as of 2023, roughly 73% of students with disabilities are graduating with a diploma, and that we're going in the wrong direction on that data indicator. Highlights the why for me, and why this work is so important, so that our students have every opportunity available to them to demonstrate their competency and abilities, so that they have post-secondary opportunities. So thank you so much, Zach. I will pause there, because I know there'll probably be far more probing questions that will affirm you met your goal. So with that, Vice Chair Groff, I will transition to you to facilitate the comments and questions.
Thank you so much. Zach, I just want to thank you too for your great presentation. And I really want to call out your use of UDL terminology within the presentation. And I think, when you're talking about multiple means of expression and so forth, it's wonderful to see it integrated into this kind of work. So thank you, Zach, for that. Please, Sarah.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation, and echoing Chair Tostin's appreciation of the graphics. This has been a very exciting time in education and a very confusing time also. And between the mountain climbing and the big ideas and standards and horizontal and vertical, I feel like I'm finally wrapping my head around all of the different options that will be out there for students. My question is very specific. It's not very exciting. Wondering if the town hall meetings are different topics, or if you just need to attend one. Like, if you attend all of them, are you going to get different things out of it, or is it a pick one kind of thing?
It really, great question. It really is designed to be the same type of town hall each time, so that we can gather as much feedback as we can. So it would be the same experience. We welcome you we have room for you if you want to join more than once, but I would say one time would be plenty, unless after that one, you realize there's another set of feedback that you wanted to provide. our thinking was it would be a helpful way for folks that maybe weren't as fluent in the online fancy website. We thought it would be just great to just talk to somebody about it. So we wanted to provide that opportunity.
All right, we don't have any other comments or questions from the board, but anyone online?
Commissioner Weiss, then Commissioner Liu.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Zach. And pardon me, because I feel like maybe I should know the answer to this question, but should a student receive an alternative diploma that also gets regional center services, can they still get all of those regional center services after they graduate? Or does that by any chance negate those services that they would get into adulthood after graduate?
Wonderful question. I think it highlights a little bit of the confusion that's out there. I'll look to some of the CDE folks to help me if I get off on any of this. But this project is actually not focused on the alternative pathway to a diploma. It's focused only on the standard or regular diploma. So in that case, it really is based around what would be the traditional experience of a student, any student in high school. For those students with more complex needs or those students who are eligible for CA, that's where the alternative pathway, the alt pathway to diploma kicks in. And that, as I understand your question, is what guidance you would be looking for. I see Shiloh behind me. I'll let her come in to give you further clarification.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Shiloh Duncan-Besriel from the California Department of Education. Just to answer your question, we have a couple of competing laws here that make it a little bit confusing, and I've often described the alternate coursework and the alternate pathways to a diploma as sort of apples and oranges, but they're both fruit, but they're very different. And so it's very similar in this vein as well, in that under the Every Student Succeeds Act, there was a carve-out. That's a federal law. There was a carve-out specifically for students who, as the state defines it, are eligible for the alternate assessment. They can receive this, what's kind of known as an alternate diploma. We don't refer to it that way here in the state, but it is a diploma. And if they receive that diploma under that legal carve-out, then they are still eligible for services under IDEA until age 22. And so they can still receive regional services, they can still receive services from their LEA, transition services, all of those are still eligible. So that's sort of the difference. Students who receive a regular diploma, even if they use alternate coursework or pathways to get there, they receive a regular diploma, then they would, once they graduate, they're no longer eligible for services under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. They could receive services from the Department of Rehabilitation, from regional centers as an adult, but we wouldn't be able to serve them under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So it's just sort of a little bit of the terminology and how it's referenced within the federal law.
Thank you, Shiloh. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Liu?
Yes, thank you. If I may follow up with something that Shiloh said, I was wondering, Shiloh, if how many percentage of special education students with disabilities receive this other diploma or certification that you're talking about? Apples being the regular diploma, and how many people get oranges? Percentage of people.
We have a count exactly yet. This is really new. So this we've started to collect some of this data. Our data systems weren't easily adaptive to collecting this information because, again, students who receive this type of diploma can still receive services under under IDEA, and so they wouldn't exit our education. Our data systems were really set up as once you receive a diploma, you're sort of not eligible anymore. And so we have been working on collecting this data in a way that would do that. And so we should have data at the end of this year. But remember, it's students who are eligible to take the alternate assessment. And so in California, only about 1.01% of students, it's like a very small sub-percentage, but a little over 1% of all students are eligible for the alternate assessment and take it. So we would expect it to be somewhere less than 1% of all students.
I see. Thank you for those numbers. Thank you for the data. And back to our speaker, it's my question is also a data-driven question, but on slide 6, we noticed that there's a 2.5% decline of students with disability graduating with a diploma. And because that's at the same time, at the same year, the general student population also had a decline of 1%. Do you think that number has increased from previous years? Because I have nothing to compare it to. And perhaps it's because of the COVID years that there's a decline and not necessarily because of the services that were provided or what resources they are. Like, for example, do you have any of the earlier 2020s graduation numbers?
To be candid, that wasn't part of our kind of research with regard to like the California trends. I know that we can pull the several years worth of data on the California dashboard to kind of see what that trend line does look like. But in terms of the kind of purpose or some of the root cause behind the 2.5% drop, that just candidly wasn't within the scope of what our original work was focused on. It was more so focused on learning strategy and learning what's out there with regard to the instructional initiatives that are put forth for this population. I'll also wonder if there's anyone from CDE on that end.
I sincerely apologize. Could we repeat the question? It was about the drop in the graduation rate?
Yes, there's in 2023, there's a 2.5% decline for students with disabilities graduation. And I was wondering if it's what the previous numbers are so that we can see what the cause of the decline is, if the numbers were higher or lower before. And maybe it's just, COVID had a huge effect on students, obviously. So it's just kind of like odd year out kind of thing, or if there is a general decline.
There has been the general trend has actually been increasing over time. We did see an increase in, I believe it was 2020 which would have not included the COVID period, because the U.S. Department of Education kind of changed its calculation. So in terms of how we report our federal indicators, there was a change there, which you might see. But if you look over time, the general trend is that more and more students are graduating with a regular diploma. And when you look at the increase that we're kind of seeing now, I would say that 2% decrease is likely because we just had more students who weren't meeting the requirements because they were because of some of the COVID issues that were occurring. You have to keep in mind when we're talking about 2023, that is, most of that data is lag year data. So we're talking about 21, 22. And so likely what we're seeing is sort of the byproduct of having the first year of students back in regular school, and they're still trying to do a lot of learning recovery.
Yes, thank you. That's pretty much what I thought, that we do have a general increase in the number of graduates. And so when we only look at 1 year and it says a 2.5 decline from 22, it could be a little misleading only because we're not looking at many other years and because of the special circumstances. So I just wanted to confirm that there has been a general increase in terms of the graduation rate.
I've been tracking this data since 2013 when I started with the department. And so over time, as we've seen increase year over year, it's a small increase. Keep in mind, we have a large student population, but it is, usually between 0.5% to 1% per year that we've seen increased over time.
Fantastic. Thank you very much again, Shayla.
Commissioner Oyakawa.
Shayla, you might want to stay up there.
I think
it's actually for both of you because I'm sorry, I'm listening to the questions and realizing I think I was confused as well. So I just want to clarify that we are not talking about students who are obtaining diplomas who qualify for the California alternate assessment.
So yes and no. So initially when this law was implemented, I believe it was in 2021, it did not include students who were eligible for the alternate assessment. However, the subsequent year, there was updates made to the legislation which included students who were both eligible and not eligible for the alternate assessment. So students who are eligible for the alternate assessment can benefit from accessing this alternate coursework. Now, whether or not it leads to a diploma under the ACSE carve-out for alternate diploma, that's sort of a separate set of legislation.
Okay, and so now is this then the guidance that we were looking to get in June of this year for students to have different qualifying coursework or other means of meeting graduation requirements that were not otherwise going to be obtaining a diploma through the alternate assessment? Is that, because I think it was our April meeting, we talked about waiting for more information to come out in June. And I feel like this is what we're talking about now. Is that?
This is what
okay.
Now, this work group has been working for the better part of a year to kind of outline what are some of the tasks and requirements in coursework so that students could be offered those types of alternate pathways and alternate coursework within a course to show proficiency. So, for example, the students enrolled in their 10th grade English course, but, writing papers is not, something that they're able to do. There's alternate means of being able to show their proficiency in the course, maybe providing presentations or, again, a more speculative my colleague could probably speak a little bit more to the specifics, but that's really the idea in showing that they can show proficiency in a single course that could lead to a regular diploma.
Okay, and thank you. And this is great to hear that the work that you're doing, Zach, on getting the feedback before putting it all out there. I guess my final question is, since this is for students with disabilities, but not necessarily those who qualify through alternate assessment. Are these requirements specific or the work that you're doing, is it specific to students with IEPs, or are we talking about students who might otherwise have like a 504 plan or even not be identified as a student with a disability? What is sort of the reach of what we're looking at?
Right now, the focus has been students specifically with disabilities who have an individualized education program. Because of where we are in terms of the gap with the statewide data and where this legislation came from, that was the focus population of the legislation. And so it is very much a focus on how do we provide this population with those alternative means of expression in order that they could meet the requirements. And we've intentionally focused on the requirements themselves and getting very proximal with, as I stated, CFERD and graduation, so that it very much is built around the structures of general education, because that's where we're expecting those students their first general education students. And so we really want that to be a connective piece.
Thank you. This is exciting. This is a really big group of students. So I think this will be really helping a lot of families and their students out there. So thank you for your work. And thanks for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Well, as we wrap up from this item, just the last piece of the conversation really made me reflect on what's called the curb cut effect. And in short, we all use, the ramps when we're stepping off the curb, and it benefits everyone. And so I can scan forward as this is implemented, and sites, teachers, principals become more aware of there are multiple means to demonstrate proficiency, how that opens the doors up for other students, and whether it's a student with a disability or maybe a student who just needs to demonstrate their strengths differently. And so how this work can grow, much like all of our universal design for learning strategies benefit all of us. I just really appreciate the depth and quality of the work and the access that this will open up for many students. So thank you so much. We will continue to track on this work, and I would encourage those of us on the commission and those who are online to please follow up with the information gathering sessions and different channels so that we can provide input as this work is moving towards its completion. With that, I will solicit any public comments in the room and ask for our teammates at CDE to please share the slide to facilitate members of the public wishing to call in.
Chair Toston, we have 2 comments in the room.
Hi, good afternoon. Veronica Coates from the Self-Administrators Association. Just wanted to also thank Zach. I think we might have been the inaugural presentation. Yep. We received the presentation in July for the self-administrators, and he was very gracious. We had very similar questions that the commissioners did, and it's, as we all know, going through all these different pathways, different options that we're now providing access to our students. We had a lot of questions as we're then tasked to disseminate and provide clarity to the field, to our districts, our LEAs, and our parent groups. So we had a lot of questions, and he spent a lot of time with us providing resources as well as follow-up. We recently, just actually less than 24 hours ago, we also sent out widely his call to action for the feedback sessions, and are really trying to elicit that from our parent and family groups through our CACs and our connection with our community advisory councils. Excuse me for the acronym usage here. But we really wanted to provide that feedback that we really think Zach has done an immense job. As Chair Toston said, the depth of his work and the resources he's giving to the field are not easy to always comprehend, and he's very much graciously spending time answering the questions, and also humbly to have our partners from the department answer the questions that maybe we don't all know. So thank you, Zach.
Hi, I'm Kara Shikoski. I'm representing SECO today. I first would just want to say I agree with Sarah that it's a very, very great time to be in public education. And if you listen to the presentations we had today, what I noticed was every one of them was about human-centered decision-making and programming in order to ensure better outcomes for our students. And what I would add to that is our society, right, as a whole. So it's very exciting work. And I just want to say to everyone who presented today that SECO appreciates those leading the work, but also is ready to partner in that work. Thank you.
There are no additional comments in the room.
We would project a slide for comments for callers calling in.
Caller ending in 7407. If comfortable, please state your name and affiliation and begin public comment. Speaker, you will have exactly 1 minute. Your time begins now.
Hello there. The California Association for Parent-Child Advocacy is a collaborative statewide organization made up of advocates and parents, attorneys. There are numbers of folks who participate in this. There have been many reports that California State Department of Education complaint procedure timelines are not being adhered to, that the State Department is very behind in dealing with complaints. Can either someone speak to that, or can this be looked into by the commission? Thank you.
Thank you. Currently, that is all.
Okay. And I ask that you leave the slide for public comments to stay displayed. I will close this item again with our appreciation for Zach and Shiloh for always being willing to jump in at a moment's notice to provide additional information. And we will move on to item 7, general public comment. So any members of the public wishing to make general public comment in the room, we'd ask you to line up now. Members of the public wishing to call in, we ask that you begin doing so now. Appears there are no public comments in the room. We'll close public comment in the room. Hold just a few more moments for anyone calling in.
Caller ending in 6321. If comfortable, please state your name and affiliation and begin public comment. Speaker, you'll have exactly 1 minute. Your time starts now.
Hello, my name is Natalie, and I'm calling because I've been listening to these meetings for a long time now, and everything sounds great, but unfortunately, it's not the reality. Our tax dollars are not going to our kids. They are going to corrupt for-profit JPA lawyers who are incentivized to deny faith to our children, create a hostile environment between parents and the schools, and they are suing children without authorization in violation of the law. They are falsifying documents, they are denying parent participation, and there is no oversight. Everybody passes the buck. There's no accountability. And so I would like to suggest for the next meeting that the topic be to do away with for-profit lawyers, especially the Joint Power Authority lawyers in San Diego.
There are no callers at this time.
Okay. With that, we will conclude item 7, general public comment. As we move to adjournment, commissioners, I would ask you to take a look in the virtual folder in preparation for our conversation tomorrow. The draft annual report is included in the folder, and I just want to acknowledge Commissioner Hamilton for her contributions. We redesigned a number of elements this year and her expertise from her professional life. She contributed to the development of this the report. And I also want to acknowledge Christine Murphy and Mary Grady and the SIP team for their hard work in compiling all the information in the report. Our hope is to officially publish it in the coming days after the meeting, but wanted everyone to have an initial first blush at the report. Also tomorrow in our committee time, we will be focusing on liaison assignments as well as our committee work and an update on some of the conversations since our last kind of operations and planning time. As a reminder, we will be 100% virtual tomorrow. The boardroom will be open, but given our previous decision, we'll be 100% virtual to kind of take some of the strain off of the audio-visual system and have us all in one setting. Thank you all for the commitment of time. I will see you in the morning. This meeting is adjourned.